a lot of it is also reflective time. It's taking time by yourself, which I think people sometimes struggle with as well, is have you like sat in a room with yourself for a while and spent a day with just yourself? What would you really want to do?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the answers lie right there, but it's hard for people to do.
Hello everyone. Today I'm so grateful and honored to introduce you to my next guest. Her name is Payal Kadakia. She's the founder of ClassPass and the artistic director of the Sa Dance Company. And she's a really, really dear friend, someone that I've known not even for that long, but someone who's become so close and so much a part of my family, and someone that I really consider a family member in my life. She inspires me in so many different ways. I can't wait for you to be inspired by her today. She teaches me so much through her example, her words, the way she lives. And more than all of that, she just has this beautiful heart that's really moved by giving and service. And I can't wait for you to experience it today. So Payal, thank you for being here. I'm so genuinely touched that you said yes to doing this.
Thanks for having me, Jay.
You're like, it's so funny when you sit down with someone, and we were just saying it before we started, as we get older in life, and I'm sure everyone who's listening can agree, as you get older in life, it becomes harder to make meaningful friendships.
Yep.
And most of us look back at our teens as being when we made really deep bonds.
Right.
But I really feel, honestly, that because of the incredible person you are, you've allowed me to make such a deep friend in a short space of time. And not that we're old.
No,
I sound like an old person now, but not that we're old, but thank you.
You have to keep meeting people who I think help you take leaps in life. And I feel like you can never stagnate. And the people you surround yourself with are the people who help you do that the most. So thank you for everything you've done for me.
Absolutely. And today I want to talk about everything. You have such an interesting life and interesting mission, and just you have so many incredible passions that you share with the world in so many amazing ways. So I want to get into all of it. And anyone who's listening, if you use ClassPass, you can say thank you to me right now. Well, say thank you to Payal, but thank you to me. And if you haven't heard about her Sa Dance Company, stick around, because if you like dance, if you like expressing yourself and art, I can't wait for you to hear about that as well. But Payal, why don't we start off by what it felt like to be growing up in the United States as a young Indian girl?
Yeah, so my parents immigrated here in the 70s, and I grew up in a town that actually didn't have many Indian people. So I was one of 2 Indian people in my entire grade, so of 300 people. And so when I think of that, I remember always feeling different. And I remember also facing a little bit of adversity because of it. But at the same time, I also think because my parents had some really good friends, and especially my dance teacher, who became a really big part of my life, she actually started teaching me the beauty of my culture. And I started growing up and doing sort of Indian dance on the weekends in the basements of my friends. And there was no platform for Indian dance. So on Saturdays and Sundays, that's what I would do. I would go to someone's house, we would train in someone's basement. And then, during the week, I was like a normal girl in the middle of New Jersey. I would have cheerleading practice and I would do ice skating. And I kind of had 2 lives, to be really honest. I felt like I had this American identity and this Indian identity. And it really took me until college to kind of find a place where I felt like I could be really confident in both. And I think that was a big part of who I was when I was growing up.
And were people around you struggling with the same things? Do you feel like that was quite a common experience, or was it something that you felt more of?
Well, I think my parents, they took a little bit of a risk. They put us in a different school system. And because of that, I didn't grow up in a community where there was a lot of other Indian folks. So I think like there were towns nearby that had a lot of Indian people in it and Indian communities where I got to go to on the weekends. But my school and where I was growing up was still not as diverse. And so I think they took the risk because of education, of course. My parents' number one thing to them was education. And it was the best school system in my town, or in New Jersey at the time. So they were like, you have to go here. And obviously I don't regret that. But at the same time, I think I was facing one of those challenges. And, now when I speak with other Indian folks, I feel like we all kind of can, remember moments where we felt like, either some of that racism or felt different or felt unique or felt like people didn't understand where we came from. And, but I think, that's what helped me and others build a thicker skin. And I actually think what's really amazing right now is there came a point where I think we may have all assimilated because we couldn't deal with it. And now we are all really getting confident and wanting to express where we came from. So I feel like we're all going through that together, and I'm seeing so many South Asians sort of really start sharing, who they are, where they come from through art, through messages. And I think it's just really important that we do that so we remember who we are.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I couldn't agree more. I think it's nice that it's organically coming out.
Yeah.
As opposed to being forced or pushed or contrived. It feels like it's organically coming to the surface.
Yeah, and I think we all, and I think with SAW in particular, I think everyone approaches it in a different way. I think, for me, it's like, how do we just share more beauty and hope and the, unbelievable values of the place where we came from?
Absolutely. And you talk so much about, in our personal conversations, about how your parents instilled such beautiful values into you, your mother's role in your life. Tell us a bit about that, because I do feel that we sometimes live in a culture today and sometimes conversations, and neither is right or wrong, but a lot of us today question how our parents raised us.
Yeah.
And wonder if they got it right or wrong. But
well, going back to what I was saying, and I'm even just thinking about this, like my parents kind of always took risks, I think, when I was younger. Like the fact that they were like, we're going to go to this town. I mean, even for them, they had no Indian community or friends when they went there. But they were like, this is the best thing to do for our kids for education, right? I think they kind of instilled these really interesting values of me of, if you want to do something, you do it. You work hard, and you don't accept the world for what you think it is at the moment. Change the world if you have to. And my mom in particular, I mean, I remember growing up, my dad worked during the day, my mom worked every night. They literally were always, working, making sure that my sister and I were, doing well at school, getting to activities. I mean, they never once, and obviously like when we were growing up, like we didn't actually have much. Like thinking about back to it, I realized like my parents were, it was like we were living not paycheck to paycheck, but pretty close to it. And the fact that they did everything to make sure that we lived a life and didn't really even know or see that. But at the same time, the reason they didn't want to, and I remember like there were points in my life where I was like, Mom, like, should we be cleaning, doing the dishes, all this stuff? My mom's like, only if your homework's done. Because like it was so important to them to make sure that we spent our time getting a good education. So when we grew up, we could live a great life.
Yeah, I remember that too.
Yeah.
I feel the same. It's so interesting how that Indian mindset, or that South Asian mindset is so strong.
Yeah.
Regardless, obviously my parents were in London.
Yeah.
It was the same exact training that I had since I was young. It was always about education.
Education.
It was always about working hard. And I'm looking around at these guys wondering if they had the same. But it's
Yeah.
in the Asian, it's such a strong Asian value
Yep.
to work hard.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things that I don't know, it was just something that you don't question it, like you just get the job done. Even till this day, my mom, if there's something I need from my dance show to work, she'll be the first person. She's in her late 60s. She'll be the first person to show up, stay up, make sure it gets done. And I think it comes down also being responsible. Like it's if someone asks me to do something, they know they'll get a good job and I'll finish it. And I think that also comes from it. It's this idea of like, I said yes, and I'm going to do 150% and show you that that it's going to be worth it.
Yeah. How did that sculpt your dreams and aspirations at that time in your life?
Yeah.
And how did that change?
Yeah. And, I would say like I had a second mother in my life who was my dance teacher. And, I think when you're really young and you have like a coach in your life, like any young person probably had, whether it's on a sports team or music or anything, I always feel really grateful for that relationship with like some sort of teacher or mentor. But because she was also so close to my family, my mom, like she also was more than a dance teacher to me. She was like, you need to be valedictorian, you need to do this, like in an interesting way where I also believed her in the sense I was like, yeah, like that, what she's saying is like what I want to get to. And she taught me this interesting way of doing it. And I always remember with dance, like I would go to a practice, not be able to do the step. I would practice it over and over and over again. And I'd show up the next week being able to do it, and I think I learned this idea of self-discipline at a really young age, which was, okay, like I need to block my life and my time to rehearse something if I want to get to do it. It's not like no one yelling at you is going to actually get me there, right? It was a matter of me going home and practicing.
Yeah.
And like, it wasn't about being nervous or, it was like, that wasn't going to fix it. It was about me focusing and doing it. And I think that self-discipline, taught me a lot of being like, if I want to achieve something, I just have to block the time out. Actually, since my earliest memories of this, and I live by my calendar, I would write down, and I actually I went home, in the spring, and my mom and I were going through all my agenda, and how we have those what were those called? The calendaring, you have a daily calendar,
right? Yes.
And you write down your subjects and your homework.
Sure. Planner.
Planner, yeah.
Planner,
it was a weekly planner. And I, from that time, would be okay, 1 hour math homework, 1 hour English homework, 1 hour. And I did that at a really young age. And it's funny because till now I kind of do that, right? And I think of even what ClassPass has become. And it's this idea of, if I do all my work, the extra hours of my life, I'll be able to dance. And so I was always trying to be so efficient. And I also learned that because I wanted to have the extra hours, not to relax, but to do my passion. And I felt like I had to earn the ability and the time to do that because I knew I needed to get an education. I knew I needed to do what I had to get done and what I was responsible for. But if I could do that quickly, I'd have the extra hours of my life to do something I love, which was dance.
Which then has kind of transferred into your life today. But before we get into that, I want you to actually share with the audience who's listening or watching about your goal setting.
Oh yeah.
The way you do it, because I think it's very unique.
Yep.
I've never seen anyone do it that way before.
Yep.
I find it fascinating, and I think everyone listening loves practical tools and tips.
Yep.
So I'd love for you to share that system. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, it's a bit of an in-depth process, but I'll walk you guys through the steps really quickly. The first thing I do is I reflect on the past year, and I write down 5 words, whether they are feelings or tangible, nouns that you feel really, really describe the past year. And they can be anything from anxiety to love, just kind of emotions. And then I ask people to think a year from now and write down the 5 words they want to be writing down if I ask them the same question in a year. And the reason I do this is because I always feel like people are don't always know what happiness or success or achievement means to them. So, and usually it's a feeling. It's how do you want to feel? Because that's the only thing we can really hold on to, because everything else is pretty transient. And so I make people always think about that. And I do it for myself as well, of what's the emotion or the feelings I want to really define the coming year by. And once I have those, I do a time diagnostic. I truly believe if you want to change something in your life, the only way you can do it is by allocating time to it or changing something around with time. Because without time, you're never going to have the time to work on it. And so I write down all the areas of my life, and then I even new areas of my life if they might not be on there. And then I rate each one of those areas of my life according to the 5 words I've said for the year, right? So I get a word or get a number from 1 to 10. And then I force myself for the next 3 months to circle the 3 to 5 areas of my life I'm going to focus on. And so whatever areas those might be, and those are dependent on the rating I gave it, plus how it'll help me get to the emotion I want. And then I write down 3 to 5 goals in each one, very specific, tangible goals that I can cross off and do. And I do this in all aspects of my life. And the reason actually I started doing this is because I think being this self-disciplined, efficient person my whole life, I was obviously I'm type A, I knew if I put some goals down, I could achieve something. And it's because it was how my brain worked. And I realized that I wasn't always doing that in all aspects of my life, whether that was in my personal life, health, any of those things. And I was why don't I apply the same mechanism of wanting to, and once again, achieving success to me isn't achieving something per se. It's about how does it feel today? And how do I want it to feel in the future? And if I can put that plan together in place, I'll get there. So that's where it started. And I started this process about 5 years ago. And I have a spreadsheet, and I always, I don't look at it daily, but I look at it every few weeks, and it sort of keeps me on track. And I think the most important thing I learned from it is to not feel guilty about the things that are not on the list, because those are the things that usually end up taking up our time and taking me away from those amazing things that I want to achieve in my life.
Yeah, absolutely. Get your notebooks out, guys. No,
Exactly.
Thank you for sharing that. I think it's such a practical method.
Yeah.
And I feel like so many of us today, like you said, we struggle with what success or happiness looks like.
Totally.
Or we have a very abstract view of what we want next year to be like.
Right.
So I think this is a really, I think people are going to really benefit from
It's
it.
like even in like the word love or something, for example, it's almost like, well, how are you defining love? And like,
Yes.
what does it feel like to you? And if you put the right intention out there of what you want love to be like, it might help you find the right partner in life or or wherever you want to go. And I just think it's all about the emotion and the intention versus like the idea of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And the other thing I wanted to pick up from what you were saying before was, so one thing was goal setting, the other thing was mentorship.
Yeah.
You spoke about the value of mentors.
Yep.
And I'm going to give a shout out to my mentor if you're listening. I'm sure
Yes.
you're not. But Mr. Buckeridge was my art teacher in school from the ages of 11 to 18. And this man changed my life. First of all, I was a rebel at school. I was the worst.
Really?
I was the worst. This you don't know about me yet. I've never told you this. I've kind of been holding this part of me back. No,
Okay.
I was the worst kid from 11 to 18.
What?
Not grades wise,
Yeah,
in terms of just being a rebel, troublemaker.
Class clown.
Yes, yeah, and even worse. I was suspended from school 3 times.
What?
Yes, and asked to leave by my school. But Mr. Buckeridge was one teacher who always stood by me, never judged me. But the most important lesson he gave me is every time we do any art, whether it was collage, whether it was graphic, whether it was charcoal, fine art, whatever it was,
Yeah.
no matter how good it looked, his question was always, why did you do that? He'd always be like, why did you do that? Why did you put that color next to that color? Why did you use that brushstroke versus this one? And he'd ask me why? And sometimes I loved art growing up. And I'd be like, my work looks great and someone else's doesn't, but they'd get a better grade because they knew why. And he wasn't basing it on the aesthetic. He was always basing it. So
Such a
even if
great
my work,
lesson.
and he kept asking me that. And it took me years to recognize that he had coached me in always looking at the meaning and the why without me even knowing. And I only realized that probably like 10 years after or something. I don't even think I got it at that time. At that time, I was just trying to get a good grade and whatever he told me. But I'm sharing that because, because I think mentors don't always come in the most, like, they're not like a box. It's not like a, so I wanted to ask you, how do you define a mentor? And for anyone who's listening, how does one find a mentor and what does that relationship look like? Because you've had mentorship from early on.
Absolutely.
You have mentors now. How have you thought about it from your perspective?
I think about it as people who are willing to invest the time in you. Because I think, you can't just, there's role models in life and then there's mentors in life. And I think in mentorship, there's a give and a take. Right? It's not someone you're just looking up to.
Yes.
And then the other thing is I think those people help guide you on a path. That doesn't mean they always tell you what path to be on, but they're actually just helping you take the leap and take the step. I love people who push me into the next direction or next part of my life. And I think the best mentors in the world help you make the decisions you need to take that step. Once again, I don't think anyone can tell you exactly what you should be doing. And I think I love having multiple people around me in every aspect of my life, like whether it's, art or whether it's entrepreneurship or tech, I want to surround myself with the best in each, and all they can do is give me their thoughts and their advice. I still have to be the person who makes a decision to move forward. But I think the best people, like they help guide you there. And if, they're guides, they're really what they are. And like you said, sometimes you don't know that people helped you make a decision. And when in hindsight, you're like, wow, I would have never been there if it wasn't for that person. And that's why I think it's like, it has to be someone you're willing to be vulnerable with. Because I think if you don't, people like that need to know the truth, right? They need to know your true being, your true challenges, the true dreams you might have. And that's the best way they'll be able to give you the advice.
Yeah. And your flaws and your mistakes. And
absolutely. Yeah. The patterns in your life.
Moments.
Like, I love it. Even with ClassPass now being, 8 years old, it's crazy to me because some of my first mentors, right? And I remember I went through a phase where I was like, oh, I don't know if those people are going to be helpful in this phase of the company, right? Because things change. And there were, tactical things that changed where I needed a new set of advisors and mentors. But at the truest level of patterns and, me doing anything when it comes to being like, I have a problem. Those people are like, well, you had this problem like 8 years ago. Did you realize, what did you do then? And I'm like, you're right. Like I've been here before. And I think it's having people like that who know, your tendencies as a human being are some of the greatest friends and mentors you can have.
Yeah. So a confession, I missed the UK Mother's Day. So I'm trying to make up for it on the US Mother's Day, which is just around the corner. And I've been hearing about this gift that mothers have been calling the best gift ever. And it happens to be a skylight. It's a digital photo frame that you can literally email pictures to from anywhere at any time. I love that it sets up effortlessly in under 60 seconds. All you have to do is plug it in, connect it to your wireless network using the touchscreen, and you're already ready to go. The best thing is that everyone in your family can send their photos to Skylight from wherever they are. You can either upload it with pictures that you already have as a personalized gift and surprise your mom or the person you love with all these pictures that they never even knew you had. It's time to start looking through that photo library of yours. You should 100% check it out, because if you don't like your Skylight, you'll even get a full refund. So as a special Mother's Day offer for being an audience member of On Purpose, you can head over to skylightframe.com and enter the code J to get $10 off your first purchase. That's skylightframe.com and enter the code J. Thanks so much. Definitely. No, I love that you brought that up, because you've obviously had a mentor for such an early stage in your life through dance.
Yep.
Who's still there in your life, which is just stunning.
I mean, I think like the Gurujis at the end of the day, I think, India has this beautiful value of what a Guruji stands for. And, I think there's this idea of respect that you have for anyone who teaches you anything in your life. Like, I will always be grateful to anyone who has, bestowed knowledge on myself. Like, I think of people like that, and I think people always have to remember this. It's like the whole values of, like, I remember in dance, it's like you show up on time, you come in, you pray, you make sure your hair is done. Like, there's no nonsense in that. It's like, and it's not because it needs to be all formal and serious. It's because you're doing it out of respect. Yeah. And I think like those values are things that I feel like I carry with me today. And actually, I always think about this with ClassPass too, because I respect the teachers on our platform so much. Like, the model is like actually set up to be like, of course, for customers, like, they love being able to try all these new things. But on the other side, you have this teacher who has this gift to be able to share more people. And I think that's what's so cool, is like we're helping more teachers in the world reach students.
Absolutely. I love it. Well said. Really, really well said. And obviously, so I'm kind of going in chronological order in your life.
Go for it.
And pulling out things, because there's just, when I was thinking about interviewing you, I was like, I can't actually skip any bit of this because I feel like, everyone's story adds up to who they are. Yeah. But yours is just like, there's been so many interesting decisions and choices and intentions. I believe
that's how life, honestly, I never want to stop. Even today when people are like, oh, so like you've succeeded. I'm like, I hope I haven't. Yeah. Like what are the next series of crazy decisions I still have to make in my life? I never want to feel like, why would you ever want to have a part of your life not be something worth telling?
That's for crazy people like us.
Exactly.
I can so relate to that. I love it. And I love looking at you as a role model in that space, because it's so easy for, like you said, it's so easy. And I think that's part of the challenge, that the fact that we're even asking individuals like yourself and saying, oh, so you're done now, you've made it. Yeah. Just shows what we believe is the end too. It's a reflection of our own limit on what making it is.
Right, exactly.
And I'm glad that you're redefining that and defying that limit.
Absolutely.
So yeah, but okay, so my question was, you went to MIT, you went to Bain.
Yes.
How difficult was it to leave Bain to then start a company? Like, how difficult was it? Because I feel, again, so many people listening either want to be entrepreneurs, which we'll get onto, or want to break away from their corporate 9 to 9, or whatever it is today. Yeah. But how difficult was it for you? And why was it difficult or easy?
Well, it's, one of the interesting parts is I remember this feeling. I got, so we always have like performance reviews at Bain. And of course, like in corporate America, it's like performance review, I have to do well. And obviously I'm a type A person, I always do well. And I remember it was one of my last reviews before I had left. And it was like, it was a good review, but like, I remember one of my bosses being like, well, I think I had, by the way, like left to go do a performance in the middle of a client meeting. So I also understand where it was coming from. I think like they had said something to me like, oh, we just don't know where you want to go and if you're serious about this. And like, no one's ever said that to me, right? Because I just am like, oh, I can always fake it. And I'm like, wait a second. And at first I was like, wait, I'm going to do so much better and prove to them how great I am and, and how much I want this. And then I had to have the conversation with myself and be like, Pyle, do you want this? And I very quickly realized that no, it wasn't the path I really wanted to be on. Now, before I went and started a company, there was actually a 3-year period in the middle. I wasn't fully ready to take the leap. So I always consider this like a mini leap I took. So I went and got a job in the music industry. So still could, pay my bills, like figure things out. My parents weren't ready to like shoot me in the head for doing something crazy. So I got a job in the music industry, and on the side, I started building my dance company. Mm-hmm. And this was an important time in my life because what it did is it allowed me to start taking some risk without fully like being, fully diving into it. And I know like, some people be like, you have to rip the Band-Aid off and do it. And I think that works for some people. I actually am really glad at this phase of my life. Like I took a second to figure this out because I didn't know. I mean, at the end of the day, I didn't know what SAW was going to be. I didn't know, ClassPass hadn't really come to me in that point. I wasn't even fully dancing in that way. So I decided to leave Bain. I started this job. I worked in the digital strategy group at Warner Music Group. I mean, it was an amazing time in the music industry. I mean, I got to work with like Daniel Ek at Spotify and got to see like licensing happen at YouTube. We tried to go dark on YouTube. All these things were kind of happening at this time because it was the first time people were putting music online digitally. Mm-hmm. And so that was an amazing time, but I really started fueling like my artist side at this point. So every night I got together some of the best dancers I knew on the East Coast. We started dancing in New York City and we would perform on the weekends. And this is when SAW started. And I just remember, it was the feeling of I could put something together. I could get people to come and attend. So we sold out a major show at Alvin Ailey. I had 1,000 people come to it. I wrote my own money down of $30,000 to get this theater. And I was starting to take these risks, right? And I had a little bit of cushion while I was doing it, which was good, but it taught me so much about myself. And I think every step of the way, I just got more and more confident that by the time, I was ready to take the leap, the only last part of it was my parents. And I remember it was Thanksgiving. So just about, 8 years ago, I went home for Thanksgiving. And at this point, like I had built the dance company. My parents were proud of me. I had people like, Mir and Iyer and like, the New York Times people endorse us. So I think my parents were like, okay, this is good. They still didn't want me to dance full time per se. But my mom looked at me and I was really unhappy. And so this is actually, people like never realized why I was unhappy at the time. Well, when I really think back to it, I was once again living 2 lives. So at work, I was like this analyst and I felt like I wasn't really going anywhere with my career. And then I also wasn't going to go anywhere with dance at that point. So I just felt like both roads were like kind of at their ends. And I was like, where am I going to go? And I needed to find some inspiration. I actually went out to San Francisco for a friend's birthday party. And I met all these entrepreneurs. There were no entrepreneurs in New York City 8 years ago, like that, at least that were in my friend circle. And I remember looking at like what they were doing. And I remember asking them like, you do this full time? Like it was just this foreign concept to me. And I started thinking, what if I could do this? What if I could be an entrepreneur? I knew I was creative and I built my confidence up from building SAW that I was like, I can lead. And so I gave myself 2 weeks to think of an idea. And this was on a Sunday. And on Tuesday, I was searching for a ballet class online. And I started sort of looking around and being like, what technology exists for people to find classes and stay connected to their hobbies? And that was sort of the point when the idea of ClassPass, it was called something else before that, but kind of came to me. So I had that in the back of my head when I went home for Thanksgiving. But my mom was the one who ultimately told me to quit. And, being who my parents are, always, work hard and all of that and education, it was a really important thing because I wanted to make sure they were okay with the decision. And I think my mom looked at me and she just was like, you're going to do great at anything you decide to do in your life, because she knew I had this self-discipline. And at that point, like, this idea of doing well was like on my own terms. Like, she, even when I was at college, would call me sometimes to be like, can you please go shopping? Like, get out and stop working. But I just, like I said, I loved working because it gave me freedom to do other things in my life. And I still feel like that. Like, being smart gives me freedom. It gives me the ability to even like to control the way I want to present my art or present my work, right? I don't want to do it on anyone else's terms.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. And I love that. And I'm glad that you're so clear about that.
Yeah.
Because I think some people, we can get lost in working for work's sake.
Yeah.
We're working because we have to.
Yes.
But you're like, no, I'm going to work hard and be smart so that I can do my own terms.
100%. Yeah. It's to me, message. It's like, it's given me, being smart has given me the opportunities, right? And at the end of the day, I worked hard to be, it's like getting an education, all of that. But, it's not an education for education's sake, right? Sure, it's like this idea of wanting to solve problems and working hard it's what liberates me. It's what, whenever I feel like I can't achieve something, like, at the end of the day, like, I don't have to rely on anyone. I love working with people, but at the end of the day, I know I could rely on myself too. Yeah. And that to me is like one of the best freedoms you have, to be able to say yes to any of your dreams.
Yeah. And this leads perfectly onto our next point, which you just brought up there. I'm going to tee it up with something personally that happened to me recently. I was speaking at a conference to a group of entrepreneurs who all have successful growing businesses, not in the line of huge global businesses, but personal businesses. Yeah. So personal entrepreneurs. And the big question was around social media and branding and using social media as a vehicle for growth. And I always start with this disclaimer that I did not start on social media to build a brand or a business. Like, that was not my goal. I used social media because I had a message that I felt was important to share.
Right.
And it was always about the message. It was always about the mission. And I actually thought I was going to work a full-time job and make videos on the weekends.
Right.
And just happy that a few people would see them. Like, that's genuinely how I'd imagined my whole life. And so I always start with this disclaimer that my intention and my mission was never to build a brand or a business based on my teachings or my thoughts. And they're not my teachings, but my teachings I've been inspired by from others and that I've articulated differently or repackaged or reshared.
Right.
And so one thing I know in our conversations, and even though I've heard you say it in interviews and I've read you say it, I want you to really have an opportunity here to unpack it. Like, the intention of being an entrepreneur, like the mission of why ClassPass exists, and the heart of who you really are, which is what I'm in love with. I want you to share that and talk through that with the audience. Listen carefully, guys.
So, I think the biggest thing you could do in life is have a purpose, right? And I think when you have that purpose and you spend your life achieving that to me is like how life should be set up. And therefore, to me, that's also how entrepreneurship is. Because at the end of the day, as an entrepreneur, you're solving a problem. You're solving something that doesn't exist in the world, right? If it already existed, fine. I mean, you can copy stuff and replicate it, but that's a different type of entrepreneurship. I think you have to make sure that the why behind starting your company, putting out anything you might want, messages, products, anything, comes from a really deep place. And while what I call champagne problems, or the things like false indicators of success, are sometimes things that we can all get behind. So things like social media followings, even the amount of funding a company has raised, those things aren't necessarily indicative of you having solved the problem. And I think for all entrepreneurs, it's what problem am I solving? And ideas are great, but you're probably going to go through a lot of ideas to figure out actually how to answer that problem and come up with a solution. But you have to be really fixated on solving that problem. And for ClassPass's sake, when I started the company, I wanted to just I wanted to build a search engine, right? Because I was struggling with finding a ballet class. So it simply started as, okay, let me build a search engine, and then people will get back to their hobbies, right? And when I first started, I may have not even known the ultimate mission and vision. And it's kind of come to me over time as I've had this unbelievable opportunity and privilege of seeing what my customers love. That being said, it did come from this idea in me that I always felt really lucky to have found dance at a really young age. And I wanted other people to feel something like that. And I, even in my 6 years before I was started this company, I was always dancing, and I would fight to dance. Like, it would be like Saturdays and Sundays, like, blocked off to dance. I mean, I missed so many things that I felt like my friends were doing because I was like, I'm going to continue to dance. And I wanted to build something like that for other people. And I say that, and so the first iteration didn't work, the second didn't work, the third started working, and we're still iterating. And I say that because we're just really focused on solving the problem we set out to. We're not focused on what our product is today. And I really think, with all the challenges and everything that happens through entrepreneurship, if it's based on anything like ego, pride, greed, you're not going to stick with it. And I think it has to be something deeper. And any of those moments, and I think the most authentic entrepreneurs know what that why is, and they can articulate. I mean, you feel it in them. They don't even need to say it. It's in their entire being, and it's the reason they work. It's how they work. It's how they inspire their team to work. It's why people will go and work for them. It's all tied to one simple thing, which is they want to go and change the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like when you do share that message, and to everyone who's listening, that message is actually what's going to help you figure out whether you're investing your time in the right place.
Absolutely.
Because you can know how to get funding, or you can know who you need to network with, or you can know the process of coming up with an application or whatever it is, all of that systemic stuff.
Yeah, the how and the what. Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
But without that strong, deep why, I love what you said, you can't be obsessed or fixated on it. And those two words I feel that you've used are so powerful.
Yep.
Because if you're not obsessed with the problem, you're going to hit so many little problems on the way. They're just going to make you give up.
Exactly. Absolutely. I mean, it's really everything. I mean, a startup is an infant, and it needs but then there's something new every single day, and you have to be like, I'm going to figure this out, right? And I'm going to learn new things to figure this out, because most of the times you don't, as an entrepreneur, you have not done most of the things you're going to be tasked with having to do, but you learn, and you care because you genuinely want to figure it out.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about SAR and creativity.
Okay.
Because I know you're such a creator at heart.
Yep.
And that's where ClassPass comes from, which we can go back to as well. But it's where SAR comes from. And you recently launched SAR in LA. Yep. The first time debut, which was absolutely beautiful to be a part of. Thanks for including me.
Thanks for being
there. I felt really
special.
I felt special being involved because I knew how important it was to you. So I'm really grateful. So thank you.
Thank you.
I was so touched to be involved.
It was a magical day.
Yeah, it was beautiful. And everyone who's listening right now, wherever you are in the world, when SAR comes to your city, you have to go and see it. It will come to your city very soon.
Yep.
So when it does, you should go and see it. But I say this all the time. I said it that day. I talk about it when I talk to you, and because it stuck with me, because it was I love clarity. I love people who have so much clarity. And when I met you, you've had clarity since day one, and you've had clarity your whole life. But you said to me, if you want to understand me, you have to see me dance. Yeah. And I was just like, wow, this person really understands themselves. No one says, no one said something like that to me before. No one's ever said to me, oh, if you really want to understand me, you have to see me do this.
Yeah.
I was just like, wow, okay. And because I was fascinated by you, I was just like, okay, yeah, I want to come and see you dance. And so tell me about how dance has become such a defining aspect of you.
Yeah,
and creative aspect.
Absolutely. And I mean, we were having this conversation this summer, and I think it really helped me also realize what has guided me my entire life. And when I think about leading a life of service in some way, and I think, people who do wake up every day to want to make the world a better place everyone's living in service in a different way. And I think about that, and I think about what I wanted to give the world, right? And I think at a really young age, when I was 5 years old, and I performed, it was probably at someone's, wedding or birthday party. While it feels like, it was just a dance performance. I think when you're 5 years old and, you have 200 people staring at you, and all of a sudden you realize that you touched their hearts in some way and you made them feel something. And I think for me, that's what dance is. It's a way of expressing and conveying emotion to people. I think I realized, wow, I can impact other people's lives. And I think that is the greatest power, and like all of us should realize at a very young age. And I think once it's actually like it's so powerful that it's also one of those things which should be really, it's like humbling in the sense of being like, we all carry that power. And then what are you going to do with it? And I think because I felt that at such a young age, I always just felt like I have to make sure I'm giving people, and knowing I have that power in me is making me feel like I need to just spend my life doing that. So I think that's always just been like a guiding light for me throughout everything I've done. What was the question originally? I don't even know what I was talking about.
No, I was just opening it up to talking about how dance is so closely linked with you.
Yeah, right.
And how creativity comes from that.
Yeah. And so, I think when I danced when I was younger, I learned a lot of folk dancing, and I learned these amazing, rich stories of the women in my culture and how they would work. And I think that was really beautiful. While I probably didn't appreciate it when I was younger, I really appreciate it now, especially being a woman, like seeing, my mom, my grandparents, like just wanting to share their stories, with the next generation, I think is so important to me. And I think that was one part of it. And then I think the other part of it really just came from, living in America and like seeing the way people moved, learning ballet, jazz, and all these other styles, and wanting to put everything together to also showcase who I was as a human being, which was this blend of like having a little bit of the, the Indian side too, which I was proud of, even though I think it took me a little bit of time to be really proud of it. And then also then blend it with this beautiful, like, sort of more Western aesthetic, which I really love, to create like a dialogue essentially. And like what I think, Sa really does, and it's still evolving, it's art. It's like we're talking about women, freedom, our culture in a really profound way. And it's so deep, and when I love creating things that are timeless. And that to me is like one of the most unbelievable words. And I think about that too when I think of entrepreneurship and anything I do in my life. I don't want, us performing to be something that can exist in today. I want this to be something that in 100 years someone could watch, right? Or if it was 100 years in the past, and it would still be the same emotions of my culture and the beings of how, human beings might be feeling today. Mm-hmm. And I think that's like what dance can really do, is it just is a way to express what words can't.
Yeah. And you do it incredibly well. It's not just aesthetically, and just, I really do feel that the music you choose, the composition, the colors, when I was watching you, I literally felt like I was in India.
Yeah.
And then I felt like I was on a journey and traveling. Yeah. And then there was a time where I felt I was on a boat and you were crossing the river. And by the way, anyone who's listening, there was no boat there. There was no river there. There was,
right.
It was all through dance, this journey that was conveyed. Why is it still relevant to you today? Why do you think that culture is still relevant today? And why is it still important? Because I'm sure there's a lot of people, they don't have to be, but maybe Asian Americans, Indian Americans, just kind of going like, well, no, I'm defined by hip hop and what I grew up on.
It's a great question. I think there's just this purity in our culture. And, it's something that I think I'm even spending more time on researching myself. And, Indian culture is one of the most ancient in the world, right? So, and you do this all the time. It's like you're trying to take knowledge of lives and lives before us, right? So we can almost live better. And I think for me, it's showing how while we may be different, we're actually all the same. And these values that are in our culture, whether it be about respect and family and, just even have girls having fun together on a playground in a way, which is how we open the show. I think these are just such human emotions, and we should never forget them. And I think they've lived forever.
Yeah.
And in a way, they're actually beyond culture, if that makes sense. So I think, one of the other things I really think about is, like I said, they're human emotions. They actually have nothing to just do with being Indian, but we're just doing them to also remember where we historically came from.
Yeah. I love that. I couldn't agree with you more. I think a lot of what I got to study as a monk as well was so universal.
Right.
Like the principles are totally universal, totally timeless.
Right.
Not for a particular sect or caste or background or walk of life. And that's what, yeah, I think you talking about the human emotions aspect is so significant for its relevance, because if you made a dance about today in the future, it would be like all of us on our phones. Like, there wouldn't be that the girls aspect playing together, etc.
Right. Yeah. No, but like, I guess it's like how playing is defined, and in that way. And I think returning back to some of that, like you said, I mean, I think the word universal is exactly right. It's how do we do that? And movement is just a really interesting, because you don't need to understand the language, while it's Indian costumes and some Indian movement and, Indian music. I mean, we actually had 8 different languages through the show. I mean, so no one actually understood any of it. I mean, there's times where I don't, and I have to spend time researching what the lyrics are to really evoke the movement of it. And I think like Indian dance in particular has abhinaya, which is the expression and the emotion, which not many other dance forms around the world have. So it's all about storytelling and preserving some of these stories. And so I think it's going to keep evolving, and I think it's evolved as me as an artist and a human being. I think like I'm realizing it of the way I want to express who I am, and our culture is all evolving as I evolve as a human being as well.
Yeah. When I see the facial expressions, they're incredible. Like the amount of energy that was projecting off of each of your faces that day, you can't not admire it, and it can't not captivate you. As in, it's just, it was totally captivating. Like I was enthralled the whole time. I was just like, how do you even do that? Like your face must hurt so much.
It's
like your face
you
muscles.
have to practice both in a way, but I think at some point it's so innate, and it's coming from our hearts. I mean, you can't think about it, right? By the time you're performing at that level, it's, and I think, look, I mean, you do this with words, right? Like everyone has their way of expressing who they are. And I think it's about finding what it is for you. And I think like that, I hope all people find their way of expressing like their deepest level of a human being. And it's why when I say you have to come and see me dance, is because I don't think I go to that place, to like my truest place as a human being in anything else I do.
Yeah.
And so it's like all the colors of who I am. It's just, all the vulnerability, all the happiness is like all there. Like I'm not holding anything back.
Yeah.
And I think even, for me as like a producer, I think about how do I create environments so I can also have my artists be able to perform at that level, because I want it's like reaching like an unbelievable euphoria, right? And it's actually like the day after you feel sad, because you're like, how do I feel like that again? Because it's such an amazing endorphin rush, but it's coming from such a true place.
Yeah, definitely. There's a beautiful Picasso quote that literally sums up everything we're saying. And he said that the meaning of life is to find your gift, and the purpose of life is to give it away. Yeah, and I love it. It's just, it's so poetically beautiful, but it also makes so much sense.
Right.
That when you use your passion in the service of others, it becomes a purpose.
Right. Absolutely.
And I feel, I wish that for everyone listening, watching right now, and for anyone else as well, that just you find your passion and then you use it for everyone else.
And that's my like ClassPass why. Like at the end of the day, I think once I felt that, I was like, how do I have the whole world feel this as much as possible? Because it's like you said, it's the only thing that matters, and it's a gift to each person. And I think if every person's able to find that, they're going to be, 10 times a better person to everyone else, right? Because of knowing that this exact feeling can exist for them.
Totally. And that's, I've got some exciting stuff coming out next year that's kind of giving everyone, in my opinion, the fundamentals of being able to find that first step.
I love that.
Because finding out how to use it for other people can become a scale question.
Yep.
Because you can always use it for just your friends. And then you can scale it like you have to the whole world and millions of users, etc.
Right.
But most people struggle at the first step of just like, what am I passionate about? What do I love? Like
yeah,
that. And that's what I want to help. I want to help codify that for people. Do you have any tips or steps that you recommend to people? Because you found yours so young and early and, but have you ever thought about that?
I mean, I think, part of, and it's sort of built into ClassPass a bit of like this idea of discovery, like try new things, because you don't know until you've kind of gotten to that phase. And we've talked about this a lot, which is you go through different phases, right? So you're maybe in an explore phase, and then you might be in a build phase, you might be in a scale phase. And I think it's like being able to go through it, but making sure that you keep things really, you keep it fresh, right? And you try new things. I was actually just saying this just the other day, but like when we're younger, we're told to do so many different activities. And as adults, we somehow stop, and I just don't believe in that, because I think you have to keep your mind and body all refreshed. And I think when we talk about like me being able to take a lot of decisions in my life to keep dreaming and to keep kind of shifting into different places, is because I kind of force myself to do that. I never want to kind of get stuck in being like, this is how my life is defined, and especially defined by other people.
Yeah.
And so I think you have to just keep it fresh. But I think the number one thing is like get out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
Because I think you just don't realize it. And then if you find something, a lot of it is also reflective time. It's taking time by yourself, which I think people sometimes struggle with as well. Is have you like sat in a room with yourself for a while and spent a day with just yourself? What would you really want to do?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the answers lie right there, but it's hard for people to do.
Yeah, I saw that post on Instagram that you did about play.
Right.
I was reading an article where you said that. And that actually re-inspired me, because I started looking back and I was like, oh, why do I still play?
Yeah.
Like a child. And I have to admit this, because one of the plays that I remember playing a lot was actually video games. Fine. I love video games. Actually, I just like playing football on video, like FIFA. It's a huge soccer game all over the world. And I've recently with my business partner, because he loves it too, we literally have all of our business meetings playing FIFA.
That's so great.
And it's just because he's the one person I can get away with that with.
Yeah.
It's just so fun. And we do it for an hour a week. It's great play. It's like mindless. But you re-inspired that in me, because I was like, oh, where do I play? And I love playing sports as well. So it's making more time to actually play sports and play football. And I just feel like, yeah, you're so right. And the funny thing is that when adults start taking dance classes or start learning an instrument again, both two things which I would love to do, a lot of people are like, oh my God, you're going through a midlife crisis. It's seen, I feel like there's a bit of a, not taboo, but there is a bit of a like, oh yeah, what are you going through? Like, is everything okay at home?
People like also just don't think it's a priority. Like,
right.
And it's like, even for Saw, like, I think people will be like, oh, you're like, you dance on the side, it's a hobby. We were talking about this. Some of the girls came over last night, and one of the girls, she has 2 kids. Okay. And her husband, of all people, because we were talking about like what to do with the show. And she was like, oh, we might tour it, et cetera. And she was like, she was so surprised, because the person who was like, you should do it, was her husband, of all people. Right? Because she was expecting him to be like, why aren't you home? Like, you have to take, and it was amazing, because I think like what he realized was like, this isn't just a hobby. Like, this was something great. And I think that's kind of what I think people should do, is like, and look, at the end of the day, if you don't prioritize it, no one else around you is going to prioritize it. And this goes back to the goal setting and why I do it is, if it's a priority to me, it becomes a priority to everyone else in my life. And if I'm not willing to stand up for it, no one else is going to. So I do not let anyone make me feel bad for dancing, right? And when people are like, I mean, it's crazy to put on a show in the hours. I mean, we dance from like 8 to 11 p.m. at night, and everyone has other lives and other things going on.
And they're all volunteers.
They all volunteer. And you do it because you're, like, it's a priority at the end of the day. And I think like that, to me, in a way, like even when we design ClassPass, like I think about all the behavioral mechanisms that are required to get somebody to say yes. Yeah. Because by the way, there are a lot of things in our lives that make it very easy to say no. Yep. Right? From being busy to where, all these things. Totally. And my whole thing is, if I serve it to you so easy, maybe you'll actually try and say yes. And I just feel like the more we can do that in our lives, and for our friends, for people in our lives, is help them fight through those challenges, because we need to keep these passions in our lives. Like, I don't like when people are like, I used to be an athlete, or I used to be an Olympian. Like, I meet people and I'm like, what? Like this, like, because that means you built something for 20 years of your life, like some work ethic, some sense of purpose, and you wanted to let go of it. And it's okay if you want to change for a little bit, but there is something in there. There's a reason you worked hard every day to get to such a great level, and it had to be driven by something deeper. So what is that, and how do we make sure we replicate that purpose in your life again? Even though you might have kids and have a job and everything else going on in your life, you still need to keep that in your life.
Absolutely. By the way, just for anyone listening, I don't make big business decisions while playing FIFA. Just putting it out there, like in case anyone was wondering.
Sometimes, like I don't know, like being creative is sometimes one of the best times you can think.
To think, it's great.
Yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying, but like sometimes people, like things connect in your mind when you let your brain have those moments. You know, whether it's in class or doing something creative, like you'd be surprised at how much the rest of your mind is working and how much more efficient your brain can actually become.
Yeah. Well, especially you were just saying that you take a lot of your calls walking.
Absolutely.
That reason.
I'm sitting down right now, but
We should have done a walking podcast. Audio would have struggled.
Yeah, exactly. But I don't know. I just think better. Like I run on the treadmill close to every day, and people are like, why do you? And I also obviously go to class, but like my treadmill time is like meditation thinking time. Like I solve problem. And you know what? Like I'm off my phone, but I'm working through stuff in my head. I can't run. I would be like completely bored. So I would, it's all about thinking through really, things I have to get through in my head. And I'm like you, like, I don't know, everything has to be thoughtful. So it's like, even if I'm thinking through like getting a gift for somebody, like I have to like, I'm not okay with like just being like, oh, here. It's like, I need to spend like, even if it's like 2 minutes, like it needs the 2 minutes to think about it.
Yeah, absolutely. But I love what you did, because obviously you built a huge company and got married too, but you never left dance.
Yeah.
Because I feel like when you were building ClassPass, it must have been so easy to make dance not a priority.
Yeah.
Like it must have been so easy, especially at the scale and acceleration and the focus. It must be so easy. And so many entrepreneurs say that they lost their health when they were scaling a business, or they lost their passion, and now they're using the money they've got now to go back to their passion, etc. But you just never let go.
There, and I'm not going to say it was perfect. Like there was definitely times I struggled, and it was, that being said, I always remember being like, well, I'm going to forget why I built this company if I stop dancing, right? And that's like part of why like I always fought to keep it in my life. And even actually like till this day, and I always love this, like my board members have all come and watched me dance. Like they will, when they even introduce me to someone, like of course they're always like, me, like our founder, like, it's exciting, but they'll always be like, wait, here's a dance video of her. Like they're proud of it too in a really special way, which makes me feel, because that's how people should be celebrating these things, right? These are different types of achievements and accomplishments that human beings have. But at the end of the day, like I would lose my why. And it would, and I do remember there were times where I stopped, and obviously my team would be like, when was the last time you danced? Like they would know, because my fire and everything that got me to, like I said, fight through the problems I needed to fight through came from always reminding myself of why I started the company, which for me lied in dance. Yeah,
I love it. That's the best when you've done it through that.
Yeah. And I will keep, like I think about, like having kids or what all the things in my life. And I just always remember like, by the way, every show I have after, I'm always like, is that gonna be my last performance? Like you always just kind of, it is really hard sometimes to work through it, but I'm like, no, I'm gonna always do it. And every time I do it, I'm like, like this is the greatest feeling on earth. Like going back to that feeling of euphoria. And I think a lot of people have that in their life. And even when people like ask, I'm sure people ask you this all the time, they ask me this, like, how do I find my passion, whatever? It's like, when was the last time you felt anything close to that? It's probably somewhere in there, and,
absolutely.
And it's happened in your life, right? It's like and it might've been when you were 6, but like, when can you go back to that feeling? Because it's probably tied to that emotion. Yeah,
100%. Anyone who's listening, don't stop playing.
Yes.
Like find your play, like make time to play. Yeah. It's a beautiful lesson from Payal. I think it's huge. I genuinely think it's huge. And I remember for me actually, before I started making content, and I've been making content since I was 18, which was never video based. It was just spoken, it was written, it was speeches, etc. And I would just do it because I loved it. I didn't get paid for it.
Yep.
It didn't go anywhere. I didn't have any followers. I didn't have any views. I was just doing it because I loved it. I did it for at least 3 hours a day since I was 18. And so when I actually started making videos, which was the first time I started putting it into digital form, the reason I did that is because I was working a job.
Yeah.
And I asked myself two questions, and I don't even know where these came from, but they came from, I think I used to listen to, and this is real, I used to listen to the Steve Jobs Stanford commencement speech over and over again every single day. And it's literally only like 15 minutes or whatever it is, but I would listen to it again and again and again. And there's so many parts in it where he talks about don't be trapped by dogma, don't be defined by other people's opinions, and those started becoming my voice. And then I remember asking myself these two questions. One was, what advice would I give to my younger self? And the answer to that question was, my younger self would have never stopped creating, because as a young person, I was writing music, I was writing songs, I was doing a lot of spoken word and rap, and I was sad that I gave that up.
You gave that up.
I gave up those words as a way of expressing, or not that I gave up writing. Actually, I never gave up writing, but I gave up sharing myself in a bigger way with that.
Right, expression.
Then, totally. And the second thing I asked myself was like, what will I regret on my deathbed? Like, what will I regret when I'm 80 or 90, whatever age I live till? And I was like, I would have regret that I just accepted that to have a good life, I had to continue having a corporate job, and that was it. And so that was like, those two questions just forced me out of that safety net that I was in. And that really like pushed me forward. So anyone who's listening, just know that, I mean, Payal's a huge inspiration. I'm just sharing in my own little way, but you know, it's not that it was easy for you. And I think a lot of people may hear and just be like, oh, but you're really smart and you've always been smart and you found your passion. It sounds like, you know, you're Superwoman.
Well, I think that's like another important thing.
Let's talk about that.
It's funny. My husband always like brings this up. You know, he's always like I've worked hard my entire life.
I know.
Like I'm always working. I'm always thinking. I'm always trying to learn. And I think, and I think of play. Like, I mean, I was just talking about this. Like, I tried to get my work done as quickly as possible and like do it well. And I would, even at MIT, I'd be like, Payal, you have to get straight A's if you want to continue dancing. I put that on myself, okay? And I say that in the sense of, I felt like I kept having to earn the right to play because, look, I also believe like you need to have a good head on your shoulders, like to have to do a lot of the stuff I even do now with the art and stuff and not be able to, you know, look, you need to know how to like, you have responsibilities, pay your bills, all those things. Like if you can't do those things, like your life might end up going in the wrong direction for other reasons. And you might not being able, you know, I love being able to say like, pursue your passion. But I can say that because I took care of a lot of other things. And no, none of this was given to me. My parents didn't come here with anything. I had to, you know, go through and do all my college applications, apply to all the jobs. There was nothing ever handed to me. I worked for everything in my life and I will continue to, even till this day, right? Every opportunity. But I think that's an important thing for people to know is that, and it is possible, like anyone, no matter where you start and come from, can get there, but you have to work hard. You need to like continue to learn, you know, be respectful and at the same time play, right? But like I said, it's like, I got my stuff done and then I was like, I'm allowed to play. Yeah. And that's sort of how I kept living my life is like little by little, I kept giving myself more of playtime because I felt like I earned it, if that makes sense. Yeah. And honestly, like I feel as an artist and even doing SAW and all that right now, like it's an absolute privilege for me. And I say that because I'm like, I feel like I've earned this ability to do it, but it was through hard work, a lot of hard work. And that's, you know, and still like to do anything in your life, and if I even want to do something new or try to, I know I'm going to have to do the same exact, I know the formula and the process to go through, but it always starts with hard work.
Yeah, and I'm so glad you raised that point because I think it's so easy. And right now the rhetoric is very much follow your passion and be an entrepreneur and break out. And that is all good advice and it's sound, but the realistic, pragmatic sense of just, hey, if you don't understand how to run your business, then you can chase your passion as much as you want, but you're not going to be able to do it long term. Or if you don't figure out this strategic element, no matter how sincere you are and how incredible your work is, absolutely. And I feel like I'm really glad you raised that.
It's like having the toolkit a little of like, you know, and I think, you know, I always think about like, what did I learn in my life that got me here? They're like actual tangible things.
Yeah, tell us.
I mean, and I've been like just like thinking a little bit about it. And I think it does come from like surrounding yourself with great people, you know, like getting a good education, respecting others. Like, I think it's like putting yourself like good work out there. All those things are all a part of it. And then like this idea of passion leading a passionate life, like I said, I think I had to keep chipping at it. Like it, right? Like I started in kind of the opposite side, very similar to you did. And we just kind of had to keep chipping to make it a bigger part of our life. And at the same time, like, I don't know if it was ever like, I don't know if, people always like are like, well, do you feel like you should have started your company right after college? Like, no, I don't regret any of my time in corporate America or doing, working in consulting.
Yeah.
It's because I think it taught me a lot too. And while I was there, I did a good job and I learned a lot while I was there. Like, take every opportunity that comes in front of you, that you're doing for a reason, and do it well at least, right? Or don't do it at all.
Yeah. And learn the fact that, I know that the time I spent at Accenture, I learned so much.
Right.
And I look back and I'm like, I learned so many things about the future of AI and VR and AR. And then I focused so much on business and sales and negotiation and just even basic things like turning up on time to meetings.
Right.
And coming prepared.
Right.
And being ready to having to work till midnight if you had to.
Yeah.
All those sorts of things, which I think are undervalued because it doesn't feel what you're passionate about.
Right.
And even though I wasn't waking up doing what I was passionate about every day, it was exactly what I needed to be able to do what I do now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's a really powerful message. I'm glad that you shared that because it's often missed. Okay, I want to talk about one more thing before we end with our final 5 questions.
Okay.
You've talked about your passion for art, but you're also very passionate about women and women in business.
Yep.
And that's something you're a big advocate and ambassador for. Let's open that up.
Well, I think so much of the world's spend is by women, right? Like women are like the largest purchasers. And I say that in the sense of, I think of the potential of the solutions we still need for things that women, problems that women have in the world. And there's a lot. And I say that in the sense of, you can only solve problems. And going back to what I think entrepreneurship is stuff you've faced and are really passionate about.
So basically men are creating the products that women end up buying.
Sometimes that happens, and I think that has been a problem. And I think like that to me is a huge opportunity, right? Of like what women can build out there. And I see that, and I think that's why there's so much potential of what we can all do. The other thing I would say is I think everything in our lives that makes us unique, whether it is our gender, whether it's our height, being 4'11", it's
tiny
like,
but mighty.
Tiny but mighty. I don't know. I just feel like in every situation, you can walk in and there's this idea of either people are looking at me with doubts or they're looking at me thinking I'm incredible. And it's up to you to walk into the room and believe whichever one. And by the way, like the more you walk in being like, I'm incredible, right? And however you have to set yourself up to walk in the room and believe you're on that side of it, I just believe you're going to be able to accomplish more. You're going to just be more confident. It's one of those, it's like actually a self-belief thing. And I really want women to know, like, they're not at a disadvantage. Like, I really don't, I've never felt like I was at a disadvantage. And I say that in the sense of once again, my mom taught me, like, if you want to accomplish something in your life, you go and do it. And of course, like, there's some stats, like, we still need to fix, like, we need more women giving money. Like, there's these things that we definitely need to shift in the world. Absolutely. But at the end of the day, I want women to know that they're incredibly exceptional and they're going to build the next like billion-dollar companies because there's billion-dollar problems that we need to solve for women.
Yeah, absolutely. Self-belief is not that everyone will like me, but self-belief is I'll be okay if they don't.
Yeah.
Because I've learned to walk in with that presence myself.
It's a great way to put it.
Yeah, I feel like that if I ever had a daughter, like I think about it through that. That's the closest I can connect with the challenge on the other side. And I'm like, if I ever had a daughter, I'd want her to be able to dream of being a founder if that's what she wanted to do.
Right.
Because she sees role models in that sense.
Right.
And I'd want her to dream of being an athlete or whatever she wants to be.
Yep.
Because she sees female role models.
Seeing other people who've done it.
Who look like her.
Yeah.
Who act like her, who think like her, who came from the same sorts of backgrounds that she did.
I think what's great right now, and I see it all the time, is women sharing how they got there and like their entire life. Like when I started consulting and I would meet some female partners, I didn't know anything about their life. Like I'm like, are you married? Are you not? I'm not saying everyone wants that, but I'm like, are you gonna, like, is that the life I want? Are you happy? Like any of those things. Like, do you have anything else going on in your life? How do you play? And I couldn't see that. And I think what's really amazing, and I think like Instagram's been great for this, and even I do this like at work, it's like sharing more of my life, with people is important. So they realize like, be kick-ass in all that you do, but you can also be like a human being and have a family and all those things, which I think wasn't always something that we saw.
Yeah, Absolutely awesome. So my final five.
Okay.
The final 5 minutes, 5 questions.
All right.
Quick questions that I love asking. So your number one entrepreneur dance collaboration. Like if you could do a dance collaboration with any other entrepreneur, who would it be?
Well, I want to dance Beyonce and J-Lo. I'm just going to say they're entrepreneurs.
They're both entrepreneurs.
For the sake of this, yeah,
They're
exactly.
both entrepreneurs. Yeah, okay.
Yes,
Beyonce,
they
J-Lo.
are, totally.
There we go. We're putting it out to the universe.
Yes.
Beyonce and J-Lo. I love it.
There's going to be a collaboration one day. Exactly.
I love it. How do you play apart from dance?
How do I play apart from dance?
Yeah.
Oh,
Or does there need to be another one? Is dance enough?
No, I mean, I think, for me, going to class is a huge thing. I also, I love movies. I love going to see movies. I know we've gone to see movies together all the time. I don't know. I love seeing other people's creativity. That's a great way I play is whether it's going to see shows or whatever. I love being inspired by other people.
That's a great answer. We saw A Star Is Born recently.
Yes, so good.
So good. Yeah, no, I agree with you. I so agree with that. I literally watch movies to get inspired to create.
Exactly. It's it's playtime in a different way,
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. The best advice you ever received?
This one, my father, I think, he always, and he still says this, it's, the only thing constant is change. So you have to always remain adaptable.
Ooh, I like it. Yeah, adaptability.
Yeah.
In every way. One of the hardest skills.
Yeah. I think we crave, as human beings, we crave security and sometimes, finding the sense of even this idea of home and what that is. But at the end of the day, I think you have to kind of always realize life's always changing and that's okay.
Yeah. This one you can give a bit more of a longer answer, but it's about, what's next? What are you building? What's exciting? What's, whatever you want to share.
Yeah. So many things. ClassPass just launched internationally and we're continuing to launch in more places. And I think with that, what's really cool is, the vision of ClassPass, and I've been talking a lot about time. Of course, it started with fitness classes, but we obviously the vision and everything I'm talking about has to do with much more than just going to a fitness class. And it's, people being able to go to more experiences. This idea of playtime is even going to see a show, right? Or doing other types of classes in photography and, cooking or other things that people are passionate about. It's the same thing I feel in dance, but I think other people feel doing other things.
Yeah.
So we will continue to expand categories, which we're excited to do. The vision of the company for me has always been this idea of a life pass where we're the destination for all your exciting free time.
Yeah.
So that's really exciting. And then, continuing to dance, I think, for me, doing the show, which we just had a few weeks ago here in LA, was another, I hadn't put work out there actually in a few years personally. And so just putting work out there as an artist, I think it just opened my mind up to so much more art I want to create with dance for my culture, for women, for this idea of freedom and equality that's needed in the world today.
Amazing. And in the future, when you'll be invited to give a MIT commencement speech for new grads, what will be your advice or message to them, rewinding back to yourself being in their shoes, in their seats?
I remember writing my MIT essay on how my life revolved around the number 2. Literally, I was born on February 2nd, and I think I always had 2 identities. Yeah, and my screen name was Pile 222.
Oh.
So I think there was this idea of numbers that was very a big part of my life. But let's see, what would I tell them? Oh my God, I think I would. I think my biggest message for people is to live life on their terms. And I think as you graduate, I think you spend some time about learning about what everyone else wants you to do. And I think that's fine. Like I said, I don't regret those times. It's about knowing when to get off the train and to start, walking your own journey. And I just hope everyone starts walking their own journey at some point, right? And the train is empty at the end.
I love it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Payal.
Absolutely.
That's
Thank
amazing.
you for having me,
You're
Jay.
incredible. Your answers, anyone who's been listening today, I love the fact that we talked about entrepreneurship, we talked about dance, we talked about creativity, we talked about purpose, intention, and mission. We talked about women in business. We've talked about so many things, but what I love about you is that you're someone that I can go from being philosophical to being really practical with.
Yeah.
and we can go from being really okay, how do we break that down?
Right.
To like, let's get our head up in the clouds and dream.
Yeah.
And I love, thank you for being such an amazing friend. Thanks, you for being in my life. Don't ever leave.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for doing this. I really hope people are going to learn a lot from it.
Thanks for sharing these stories with other people.
Thank you. If you want even more videos just like this one, make sure you subscribe and click on the boxes over here. I'm also excited to let you know that you can now get my book, Think Like a Monk, from thinklikeamonkbook.com. Check below in the description to make sure you order today. Hello everyone, and welcome back to On Purpose, the #1 health podcast in the world. Today's guest is none other than the incredibly talented, immeasurably kind Renaissance woman herself, Jennifer Lopez. Jennifer has managed to not only be a cultural touchstone for more than 25 years, but has reached invaluable success while staying so authentic to who she is. JLo just launched her skincare line, JLo Beauty, in January, and she performed at the inauguration.
Know a song.
Of course.
They should have a whole school for that.
That is a great question that my wife and my mom still ask me every single day. Hey Jennifer, it's so good to see you.
Hi, Jay. Let me give you a hug. I think you have to strive to be the best. I think that's an important key. But you don't have to be the best to have success.
Welcome everyone to Coach Conversations, a monthly YouTube series where we get together to talk about the things that truly impact our minds, our hearts, and our lives. And today's theme is finding your purpose, leading with gratitude, and as the new Coach campaign, Coach It Forward, encourages, telling the people in our lives how they've moved our world forward. Now, who better to do this with than you, Jennifer, someone who found her calling so early in life, someone who's dedicated her life to pursuing her dreams and done it with so much authenticity. And what can I say? You've been a cultural touchstone for the past 25 years. You're a member of the Coach family. And what I'm most inspired by and what I want to dive deepest into today is how purpose drives everything you do.
I'm ready. Let's go.
I'm fascinated to know how you define your calling and purpose today and why you think it's important to define it.
Wow, that's, I went like that when you asked the question because it's still such a big question for me, even though I kind of know what I do for a living and what my life is and the things that drive me. For me, today in January 2021, I think my calling is to empower, inspire, and entertain. Those are the things that I do. And in entertaining, I kind of hope I'm always empowering and inspiring people to be the best at whatever they want to do. I went and before Ruth Bader Ginsburg died, I got the privilege to meet her in her chambers while I was on tour. And I said to her, what can I do to help? Like, it seems like the world is so crazy right now. And she said, exactly what you're doing. Every person just has to do what they do best and be the best that they can be. And in that, they will help the world.
What a perfect answer. Thank you so much for sharing that, by the way.
Since we're talking about purpose this month, and that's the topic, tell me a bit more about you. What exactly does a purpose coach do?
That is a great question that my wife and my mom still ask me every single day. A purpose coach helps people figure out how they can have the deepest and biggest impact on people's lives using their gifts. And I believe there's someone out there right now, Jennifer, who's going to cure a disease and they don't even know it yet. There's someone out there who's going to inspire millions of people and they don't even know it yet. And if I can play even a tiny role in helping them get closer to that, then that's what I'm trying to dedicate my life to.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love that. That's like a perfect answer. But you weren't always a purpose coach. You had kind of a second act. I did a movie called Second Act, so I'm always about, we wrote that movie with this whole idea in mind of like, you can do many things. So how did you get to where you are today?
I thought I was gonna be in business because it was the safe option. And then I completely went on to the other side and rebelled against it and went and lived as a monk. And then I came back to the real world 3 years on where I found more stability back in the world of management and business. And then I found that that wasn't my true calling. What drew me to the purpose work is that I saw a lot of pain in humanity. And the source of that pain was a lack of education. People were just never given the tools. So if you think about it, we have a class for biology, but we don't have a class for the heart or emotions. We have a class for math,
They should
but we
have a
don't
whole
have a
school
class
for
for
that.
the mind.
Yeah, they have a whole school for that.
Literally,
I always
like-
say, why don't they teach kids from very young to love themselves? I'm with you on that.
Yeah.
You should start that school or a course
Well, we
or
should do it.
something. I remember when I was like going through therapy at the beginning, kind of like in my late 30s, and there was a lot of talk about loving yourself, and I was like, I love myself. But obviously I was doing all these things in like my personal relationships that didn't seem like I was loving myself. But so I didn't even understand the concept of it. And it took time, and it's a journey, and it's still a journey for me.
How do you feel that, people are struggling, obviously, as you know, as we're aware. How do you feel like finding your calling and purpose happens at difficult times and at tough times? Is that the right time to open your mind and heart up to that? Is there ever a right time?
This is such a tough moment. It's a very tough moment, and the whole year has been tough. But many of us, if we're lucky, one of the blessings of 2020 was that we had a moment of pause. There was a moment where we could just stop for a second and we could look inward, even if it was just taking a few moments every day to take stock in those things and to prioritize what was really important in our lives, our family, our kids, and not only see what you want, but more importantly, who you want to be when it all comes back around.
It's a great insight, great advice.
Let's talk more about the words calling and purpose, all right? Because that's what this month is about. How would you define them? It's not the same thing as career, for example.
Yeah, I think there's a difference between a calling and a career, because a career feels like something you're always pushing. Like you're like pushing it, trying to make it work. And a calling feels like something that's pulling you closer to it. Like it feels like you're being pulled towards it. And so, but I have to say that I do feel careers can evolve into callings. And so I often find that when people just start on their career, and rather than feeling like, oh my gosh, my calling's so far away or my purpose is so far away, let me just learn what I can from this because it's going to be useful later. There's going to be some part of it that's actually powerful for my future. And so I think that's how they connect and overlap.
Yeah, and I think when you take on any job or anything that you have to do, even if it's like, well, this doesn't feel right, if you put your heart and soul into it and you do the best you can do, you're gonna get something out of it. It's gonna lead to something else. And when you're trying to be, like I said, you have to try to be the greatest of all time. Like you have to aim for that. And that's what right? And when you're aiming for that, all of a sudden as an actor, you're like, when you're aiming to be the best actor you can, you realize that you have to learn what it is to direct. You have to learn what it is to produce. You have to understand what it is to be the set designer, because all of it works together. And you wind up, growing and growing and evolving just because you're open to being the greatest in the job that you have right there.
It seems like even in your new single, In the Morning, you speak to metamorphosis. And it seems like what I'm hearing from you today is that everything's highly intentional. You're picking things because they seem deeply purposeful. Have you always been like that? Has that always been the way you've approached everything in life, where it feels deeply intentional?
Yeah, I think because, I started as a dancer, and I wasn't always the best dancer. I was a great dancer, but I wasn't the best dancer, and everybody's so competitive in these fields, right? But I knew that from the beginning, because of that, I put something extra into it. I put my heart into it. I put my soul into it. Into each move, there was a purpose behind it. Like everything had to speak something. And I learned that early on when I was dancing from when I was very young, that I had to, for it to affect people, since I couldn't kick my leg the highest, because I couldn't jump and make the split the highest, that I had to have something else that was connecting, because that, at the end of the day, doesn't really matter. What I realized what matters was actually, connecting in a way and putting a passion into each move and making everything mean something. Everything I do, I want it to have a purpose to it. I really want to remind people to own their power always. Morning to evening. It's not just when you're in the spotlight. It's like being your best self at every moment, even when the cameras are not on.
I love hearing you say that you didn't think that you were the best dancer, because I think there's a lot of people just hearing that and going, oh, just taking the pressure off of like thinking that you have to have thought you were the best from that point on. So
I think you have to strive to be the best. I think that's an important key. But you don't have to be the best to have success, to have, you just have to not give up. You have to keep going. You have to always just know that you have something special to offer. But you have to strive. I think striving to be the best is part of the secret.
When I've watched you, whether I've been watching your interviews or your performances, I always feel like it's more than entertainment. It's more about empowerment. Tell me about what's going on in your mind and what you want people to experience when you ask them to dream on.
My mantra for this year, one of them, because I always have many, is to dream on. I really believe 2021 can bring change and healing. And my dream is that, together this year, we can make a more unified, more loving, more accepting, more understanding world. I always want to inspire different things in people, and whether it's to make them laugh or cry, affect them in some way. And in these times where all of us can feel lost, I wanted to give people some hope and some direction.
And I'm interested to hear about how you go there in your creative process, because to be able to do that, it means you're having to go through things yourself. You're having to feel things.
Yeah, the creative process for me, especially in building a show or a performance, is really a many-layered, process for me. I don't think anything has an impact if you're not 100% in it and behind it. So when I'm creating something, I do it because I love it, and I love the moment-to-moment connection that I get with the audience, whether it's through a song or a movie or a live performance. I want it to be successful, of course, and I want to do my best, but I believe that things that resonate with me will resonate with other people. And when you make choices that way, yeah, there's always some risks involved. Some people are going to love it, some people are going to hate it, whatever. But I don't let that worry kind of overcome me. Is this the right choice, or should I be more cautious? Because I want to feel passionate about the things I create, and I think that shows in my work.
Yeah, one of the things that really resonated with me was when, on the last day of 2020, you used the launch of your J.Lo beauty brand to tell people to literally wash away 2020, like ceremoniously, right?
It
like
was.
And
I feel like everybody needed to do that. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I agree with you. Everyone needed to do that. What do you think you were washing away in 2020, or what were you letting go of in 2020?
With the launch, because it was on January 1st, and because it was a symbolic kind of new beginning of a new year, that the idea of washing away the year before, which was 2020, which was a year we all wanted to wash away, it was a chance to kind of wash away some of the pain, some of the uncertainty, some of the fear that we've all been experiencing this year. It was a chance to just wash away the energy of that year and really start fresh and know that's possible. But we, as a collective, have experienced a lot of trauma over the past year. Physical, emotional, psychological. Is there such a thing, do you think, as universal healing? How do we move forward with purpose as, because we're all emotional works in progress?
I love that. I'm so glad you asked me that question. There's a beautiful thing I read from a writer called Russell Barkley. And in it, he says that people who need the most love often ask for it in the most unloving ways. And I thought about that, and I think about that a lot, about how every cry for attention is a cry for love. Every cry for validation is a cry for love. Every act of pain or hurt to someone in one way or another is a deep cry for love.
Right, but also, it's just not a cry. Sometimes it's like that person who's really angry. The person who's really angry, you're like, you just need a hug. Let me give you a hug right now. You could just tell.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah, it is exactly that. No, I know exactly what you mean.
I find that a lot of people right now feel this pressure to find their purpose. When someone's feeling pressure, like if someone's sitting there and they're going, oh gosh, I just don't know what my purpose is. I feel so far away from it. How do you deal with that pressure of redefining your purpose and evolving?
People always like, oh, she reinvents herself. There's a reinvention. I don't like that word. I'm not reinventing or trying to be something different or trying to trick people into something new. It's an evolving. right? So when you're talking about a calling or purpose, there's a lot of pressure around it, right? The most important thing is that you have to listen to yourself and the words that you tell yourself, because what you say and what you think, and I tell this to my kids all the time, becomes your reality. If you're telling yourself I'm gonna be this or I'm gonna be that, or you're telling yourself I'm a loser, then you'll be a loser. Whatever it is, you tell yourself that and it will manifest. I really believe that we create our lives, again, not just with our actions and the things we do, but the things we think and the self-talk that we give. Being in this business where people are always trying to tell you what you should and shouldn't do, you really have to have a strong sense of self and gut and instinct and follow that.
We talked about listening to the inner voice, but we also have to listen to voices around us, surrounding ourselves with the right mentors. Tell us about what Coach It Forward means to you.
I mean, it's about really telling people in your life, taking the time to let the people in your life know that they've impacted your life. That, to me, is such a beautiful idea, and why I love being associated and working with them, because they're always thinking about kind of more just not, the brand itself, but what the brand stands for, and it's social good. And I love that, and I love this idea of Coach It Forward. I mean, we all know what pay it forward means. It's like you have a blessing and you somehow pay it forward selflessly to somebody else. And I love that idea. But I also love the idea of Coach It Forward, which is just, simple as picking up the phone and calling somebody and saying, you make my everyday better. I would say who I talk to every day, maybe multiple times a day, is my producing partner and one of my very best friends, Elaine Goldsmith-Thomas. And she just pumps me up every day. She just, she goes, I feel like I have to remind you all the time because you're so hard on yourself and you're such a perfectionist. I want to remind you that you're doing great. It's good, because I'm always like, oh, got to do this. I didn't do that. Blah, blah, blah. You're a good mom. You're a good, person. And it's important to have people like that in your life. And so I'm saying to Elaine right now, I love you and I love what you bring to my life. And everything about you and how you make me feel is priceless to me in my life.
I love that. That's beautiful to hear. And I'm so glad that gratitude was personalized and specific. Like, that's when it works. Like, studies show that when you're actually specific about gratitude and it's so personal, and I could see when you were talking about them, it was just pouring out from your heart. Like, that's when gratitude is beautifully received and given. Like, you feel as much joy giving gratitude as the person feels receiving it. But Jennifer, thank you so much for your time today and to join me in this first ever episode of Coach Conversations. I feel like we were able to dive so deeply into purpose and calling, but I want to end with a quick fire round of fill in the blanks. I'm going to ask you a question, then you're going to ask me a question. My favorite affirmation is?
I am open and receptive to all the goodness and abundance that the universe has to offer.
Oh, I love that one. That's beautiful.
Yours.
Okay.
My biggest cheerleader is?
My mom, my sister, my wife, probably. I'd have to go with family. So yours, my favorite dance move is?
I don't have a favorite dance move. I think the thing that I'm probably known for is maybe the booty shake. Okay, yours. Okay. The first thing I do in the morning is?
Avoid looking at my phone.
Oh, yeah. That's a good one.
Okay, this is for you. I laugh most when?
When I'm with my mother. Yeah, she literally makes me laugh out loud. Okay, for you, my favorite J-Lo song is?
Oh, that's a tough one. I'd have to say the one I played the most is I'm Gonna Be All Right. I think that has to be my favorite song.
I wrote that song. Oh my God. I love that song too.
I think the messaging, the meaning behind it, still to this day, I can put it on any time in the car, at the gym, when I'm walking around, and that song is like, it gets me in the zone. So
thank you. I love that. That is so, you really did know a song.
Last question. My calling in one word is?
It's too hard, one word.
Okay, one sentence.
One sentence. Okay. My calling in one sentence is, like I said, it's to empower, inspire, entertain, and put out into the world a message of love.
Thank you to everyone who's been watching this, and I'm so honestly deeply grateful for this time we got to spend together. And I'm excited to see if we can start a school together to help people find those emotional skills and emotional abilities. But everyone who's been watching today, make sure you subscribe, make sure you share this conversation, and make sure you share the insights and the inspiration from Jennifer that really resonated and stuck with you. Because when you pass it on, when you pay it forward, when you coach it forward, it allows you to build meaningful relationships with everyone in your life. Thank you so much for watching, and a big thank you to Jennifer for being here with us. If you want even more videos just like this one, make sure you subscribe and click on the boxes over here. I'm also excited to let you know that you can now get my book, Think Like a Monk, from thinklikeamonkbook.com. Check below in the description to make sure you order today.
It was just the natural anxiety that I had my whole life was causing me to have a panic attack. I remember having a panic attack at that football game. So, for me, it was just a learning experience because it was validating everything my father was telling me. And my father was telling me that if I didn't change my behavior, if I didn't change my lifestyle, I was going to end up in jail, dead, or broke, sitting under the tree.
Hey everyone, welcome back to On Purpose. I'm so grateful that you keep taking out the time to invest in your growth, your education, and for you to move forward. And today's guest is going to help you do just that. Today's guest is super unique. It doesn't really need an introduction, but I'm going to give him one anyway because I think that it's important for each and every person that we have on the show. Today's guest is Charlemagne. He's best known for co-hosting The Breakfast Club. He's a social media influencer and executive producer, and someone who I think has a really interesting way of thinking about culture, media, and what's happening in the world today. And I can't wait to tap into that. Charlemagne, thank you so much for making the time, man.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you, man.
What's happening?
Thank you for being here. Yeah, really good, man. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
But yeah, so today I want to dive straight in.
Okay.
I called the podcast On Purpose. I believe you're someone who's living a purposeful life, and I really want to dive into what that is. But I want to start by setting your background up a bit because I want my audience to really learn about what you've been through, where you've come from. And now growing up, you went to jail quite a few times.
Yes, indeed.
Right? Tell me about what that experience looks like, feels like, and how you were able to evolve from it.
That's an interesting question because for me, the first time I ever went to jail, I didn't realize how much trouble I was in because the first time I ever went to jail was for assault and battery with intent to kill. And it was me sitting in the back seat with one of my homeboys, another guy that was driving. And, one of my homeboys shot at this car because we had just been arguing with the guys. We're not really arguing. We was in the neighborhood talking to their girls, and they drove through, and I was acting like Ice Cube and Boys in the Hood. I had my shirt up. I ain't even had no gun. I just got my shirt up. Like, hey, what's up? Y'all got a problem? Y'all got a problem? So then when we left the neighborhood and went to McDonald's, they followed us. They followed behind us, and then they pulled up on the side of us, and so my homeboy shot. And they literally came and arrested me the next day from high school. And, you got to think up until that point, I had been getting into a lot of disciplinary problems in high school. But I had never been into a situation serious where I had ended up in jail. So it's like when they put me in handcuffs in high school, I honestly, it didn't even dawn on me that, oh, shoot, I'm in prison. I mean, I'm in jail, in county jail. In my mind, I was like, I'll be out by Friday in time for the football game. Like I literally thought I was going home that day. And I remember, the police officers giving me a statement to write, and I wrote this long, lying ass story about how I was hitchhiking and, I jumped in the car with some hitchhikers and I don't know who the people were that shot. Just made up this whole BS story, and I remember the officers coming back saying to me, we was gonna let you go, but you sent us on this wild goose chase. And then my father was like, look, I'm gonna let you sit here for a while. Because, this is what I've been trying to tell you your whole life. I've been trying to tell you that if you don't change your behavior, you're going to end up in jail, dead, or broke, sitting under the tree. And, he let me sit in there for like 45, 50 days.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, he was waiting for the bond to go down as well. But he really wanted me to learn a lesson. And, I didn't learn that lesson the first time I went to jail. I learned it more like the second or third time I went to jail. Because, when I first got out, actually, the day I went out, I went right back to the hood. And my father told me not to do that. And you got to think I hadn't smoked weed for 50 days. So that's kind of like when my love affair with marijuana stopped. Because I remember getting out after those 50 days and smoking weed and being so paranoid. And all I kept thinking about was, I'm about to go back to jail. I'm about to go back to jail. I'm about to go back to jail. But I didn't realize at the time I was dealing with anxiety too. So not only was it the weed, it was just the natural anxiety that I had my whole life was causing me to have a panic attack. I remember having a panic attack at that football game. So, for me, it was just a learning experience because it was validating everything my father was telling me. And my father was telling me that if I didn't change my behavior, if I didn't change my lifestyle, I was going to end up in jail, dead, or broke, sitting under the tree. So when you see things happen to other people, wise people learn from those mistakes. But a lot of times, you have to go through things yourself, in order to really learn from them. That's why they say smart people learn from their own mistakes, wise people learn from the mistakes of others. I wasn't wise then, I probably wasn't even smart, but I had to go through all of that, just to learn the lesson that my father had been trying to tell me for years.
Yeah, and what was it about that third time where you were like, okay, now I get it? Like, now I get the lesson. What was it?
It wasn't even necessarily just the third time. I remember the second time I got locked up. I got locked up for distribution of marijuana because I sold to an undercover. And they had a drug bust on the house we used to trap out of. Rest in peace to my man, Jarrell Garnett. And we all was in jail. And I remember just all of us being in the cell and just, bleh, I just threw up. Like literally, I wasn't drunk or anything. I was just sick. Cause I'm like, oh my God, I'm back in jail. But I was only there for the weekend. And then it was just like, the third time was just like, man, I put myself in such good positions, you know what I mean? But then I put myself in such bad positions. And it's like, yo, you can't, play both sides. You know what I'm saying? You got to really do one or the other. So it was just me finally realizing once again, everything my father is saying is true. If I don't change my lifestyle, I'm going to end up in jail, dead, or broke, sitting under the tree. When you see people that you grew up with who you used to look up to and they really are broke, sitting under the tree, or you got people who end up going to jail for 5 years. That was the first time. My homeboy, he actually went to jail for 5 years. He was the first person I knew that had like a longer prison sentence. And those 5 years seemed like forever until he came home. But, like those type of situations just finally made me say like, yo, this is real and I'm not going to waste my life. And I always had this vision of the future, because I don't know what I was reading one day, but it just said everything you do in your life today directly impacts what happens in your life tomorrow. Or maybe I saw Back to the Future and I was like, damn. I remember, for real, because I believe in the space-time continuum. So it's like, you see what happens if you don't make the right decisions, in your past that will impact your future. And I always thought about that. I thought about what my friends were doing or what my cousins were doing, and what was causing them to be washed, so to speak, or causing them to end up in jail. And I just was like, I'm about to do the exact opposite. And that's exactly what I did. I started going to night school. I started, working real jobs. Like I just did anything I had to do to create positive energy in my life.
I love that, man, because I think a lot of us can have that experience, maybe not to the same extreme of going to jail multiple times, but I think a lot of people listening right now, watching right now would say that we're not wise. We don't learn from the mistakes of others. We don't learn from hearing about the mistakes of others. We learn by, unfortunately or fortunately, going through the experiences. And one thing that you sparked was what you said about your father. There's a statement that says, the day that you realize your parents were right, your kids are telling you that you're wrong.
Ooh.
Right? But I mean, do you have that sometimes? Do your kids... when you're coaching your kids or you're sharing that wisdom with them or insight with them?
I haven't gotten to that point yet. Like my oldest daughter is 10.
Okay.
My other daughter's 3 and I got a 7-month-old. So I haven't gotten to that point where both my daughters have their own personalities. They're both very strong-willed. But for the most part, especially my oldest daughter, she really listens to me. My second daughter don't listen to me at all, but she's only 3, so I got to give her time. But my oldest daughter listens to me a lot, and she listens to me.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Intently, and she just, I guess maybe because we're both Cancers, my birthday's the 29th, hers is the 27th. So she's just in tune with me in a different way. And I think that she's grasping the concept of whatever happens today will dictate what happens in your life tomorrow. Because I realize she has a lot of plans. Like, she's been talking about going to Harvard for the longest. Then she started talking about going to UCLA because of their gymnastics program, if I'm not mistaken, or the cheerleading, might be cheerleading gymnastics, I don't remember. Some program UCLA had that she's really into. But then she says she wants to be a dentist. And, she hears me talk about business a lot. And one thing I do is if I'm on a business call, if she's riding in the car with me, I have the phone on speaker. Because I think kids, we learn like, the stuff we think is in the background to kids is actually top of the mind awareness to kids. So when we're having these conversations, kids learn from that. Kids learn from what they hear us say. Kids learn from what they see us do. So, if you walking around your kids yelling and screaming and cursing all the time, don't be surprised when they start yelling and screaming and cursing. But when you having conversations about business and, buying, commercial real estate and franchising and, whatever it is, like she takes all of that in. Like she wrote a screenplay the other day.
No way.
She wrote it it was something for school, but it was a screenplay. I'm like, how'd you learn to write a screenplay? And she was like, because I read a Harry Potter book one time that was a screenplay. I don't know if it was a Harry Potter book. It was some book that she read that was in the form of a screenplay. But she wrote her own screenplay. Now she says, I'm writing a book. I don't want you to read it till I'm finished. I'm like, do your thing. Like, I'm not going to stifle anything you do creatively. Go.
That's beautiful, man. I think that's a great trip. Yeah, kids don't do as you say, they do as you do.
Absolutely. And that's following. That man, that's so funny you say that. I was having that conversation with somebody earlier today, and I was talking about, or maybe it was yesterday, but I don't remember. I was talking about like how, the stupidest thing you could tell somebody, especially when you're a parent, is don't do as I do as I say. No. Like, I'm gonna do what I see you do. I'm not like I don't care about your words and lip service. I care about your actions and deeds.
Yes,
and that's how all of us learn. Like, all of us. We're a visual people. If you show me how to do something as opposed to tell me how to do something, I'm gonna learn faster. Well, at least I do.
Yeah, me too. No, 100%, man. And then this seems like a massive switch in your life because you have this moment or a few moments, and you're now saying you're going to night school. You start getting real jobs, you shift into being a local radio station. How does that shift happen? And why do you think you start getting pushed in that direction of music and radio?
That shift happened because I believe that positive energy activates constant elevation. And I mean, I always wanted to rap. Like I got Wolverine tattooed on my arm holding the microphone. I got this when I was 17, so I always wanted to rap. And it's I got Wolverine holding the mic because I thought that the microphone was going to change my life. It did, just not the way that I thought it was going to. And so, like, when you're a black man growing up in a certain environment, the people you see who are successful that look like you are usually in rap, or they're usually in athletics. So for me, I wanted to rap. So I would be at these local studios. I was at a studio called TNT, and then I was at another studio called Never So Deep. Never So Deep. That's my family. Dr. Robert Evans and his son. Bless. And for me, I met this guy named Willie Will, and he's a radio personality, and he was a local radio personality at Z93 Jams in Charleston, South Carolina. And I remember just. I'm like that now. If I see somebody doing something interesting, I just ask them, how did they get into it? How did you get into whatever it is that you're doing? And I said, how did you get into radio, man? And he was like, I went down there and I got an internship. And he's like, you went down there and got an internship? Like, is that easy? And he was like, yeah. I'm like, you don't got to be in school or nothing? He was like, nah. And this was 1998 in Charleston, South Carolina. So, the path to entry was a little bit less difficult than it is now. And so, that's what I did. I went down there and I got an internship. And that's how I got my foot in the door of radio. And for me, a guy who never been to college, didn't have no college degree, might have just graduated night school and had my diploma, that was a huge deal for me because that was the first environment I was in that was like really corporate. Even though I had worked at, a telemarketing place called Paragon Solutions. I worked at Demo in the Mall, which was a clothing store. But that was a big deal because that's, for me, that's Z93. I'm from Moncks Corner, South Carolina. My whole life was Z93. Z93 is the heritage station in that area. It's still there right now. Wow. So that's what we used to always listen to. So for me to just be in that building, even though I was just an intern, I was, driving the station vehicle and going to get the Jock's Pizza, whatever it was, that just felt like such a big deal. Even just driving the truck and people blowing their horn at you and they driving down the highway like, oh, Z93. Like that was such a big deal for me. So that's how I got into that space, what I'm saying? Just really following my dreams. And that's why I always say, I'm not afraid to say, fuck my dreams. And then in my first book, Black Privilege, I have a chapter called Fuck Your Dreams, and it's fuck your dreams if they're not your dream. Because rap really wasn't my dream. Rap was just something I wanted to do because I saw it working for other people. I saw it working for people who looked like me. So me following that dream led me to be in that recording studio. But what was really supposed to happen, I was supposed to have that conversation with Willie Will, and Willie Will was supposed to introduce me to this game that changed my life, which is radio. And that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, I love that, man. And a lot of people won't know this as well, is that mine's the same. So I have a microphone tattooed on my neck because I grew up wanting to be a rapper as well. So if you remember the Source magazine.
Wow.
So I wanted to be a rapper too. And I used to love spoken word. I used to love writing. I used to love word. And that was the same thing for me. And I had the same experience because I used to do internet Choice FM. Choice FM was London's, because I grew up born and raised in London. So Choice FM was London's like underground, grime, hip hop, rap. That was our space. So I was interning there when I was around 16, 17. And for me, it was the same thing. And then I realized through the same process that what I loved was moving people through language, moving people through words. Communication. Yeah. That's what I love. So even though I'm not a rapper now in my life, my whole life revolves around a microphone, whether that's podcasting, whether it's video. But the point is it's using words to articulate a message that moves and transforms people's lives.
Same here. That's important. That's very interesting you say that, because that's what I have always known, but just started to really understand. Like I tell people all the time, I've been doing radio 21 years, but I feel like the past 2 years, I've been really walking in my purpose, and I think that purpose is, knowing that when you got a certain platform and, when that platform gets to a certain level, like you're here to deliver some type of messaging, and I feel like that's where I'm at now with it in my career.
That's awesome, man. What is the purpose? Where is your purpose right now? Like, what is it exactly, and how's it serving people?
This is exactly what you just said, serving people. I wrote an article. I used to write for Ozone magazine back in the day. I don't know if you remember Ozone. Mm-hmm. But I used to write for Ozone, and I remember writing this article called What Would Jesus do? So it was WWJD, but it was What Would Jesus do if Jesus was a jock? So it was all of those initials, basically. And I was saying that if Jesus was alive, he would be a radio personality / DJ, because I really truly feel like we're public servants and we're here to serve the needs of the public. We're not public servants like police officers. We're not public servants like, firefighters, but we're public servants, being that every day somebody gets up in the morning, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m., and we got to get them through. We help them get their day started. We give them their news. We give them their information. We entertain them. We educate them. We give them that energy. And I truly feel like that is what you're supposed to do when you have access to these big platforms. Like Malcolm X said, the person who controls the media controls the minds of the masses. And I mean, if you notice, we're getting fed a lot of BS right now. It's a lot of fear mongering going on. It's a lot of anti-intellectualism going on. And I'm not saying I'm the most intellectual motherfucker out here at all, but I know the people who are. And being that I know who the people who are, I got a platform of 4 to 5 million people that they can talk to whenever they want to. Mm-hmm. So that's what I use my platform for. If it's not me delivering the messaging that may impact somebody's life or affect somebody's life, I know the people that can. So for me, that's what my purpose is, to serve the needs of the public. And one of the biggest things I think that the public needs right now is we just need to be mentally healthy. Mm-hmm. And it's so wild to me. Everything that I'm realizing now, I always knew. Like I told you, I wrote that article about being a public servant a long time ago. Mm. And before that, I always knew that everything was mental. Like I always knew that. And it can go back to like Another Bad Creation saying everything is mental. TLC saying everything is mental. RZA saying everything is mental. Everything starts with your thoughts. Like when they teach you in kindergarten, if you can conceive it, you can achieve it. Like you have to be mentally healthy to even have that kind of optimism. And you wonder why so many brothers in the hood, so many sisters in the hood don't have that kind of optimism. It's because they're dealing with their insecurity and their anxiety and their depression and just trauma and pain. How can I think clearly? How can this tool that can change my life, which is my brain, how can I properly use that if I got all of these obstacles and these distractions in my head that are keeping me from thinking optimistically? So that my biggest thing right now is just to spread that word of investing in your mental wealth.
Yeah, I love that, man. And that's the same reason why I started social media. Like my mission on social media is making wisdom go viral. Mm-hmm. So it's like, how do you take this wisdom that's like hidden away? It was only for the elite, or it was only for people who went and had these crazy experiences and adventures. How do we take that and spread it to everyone, so that average kid in London where I grew up, or the average kid in New York City where we are right now, can come across it and find it too. They don't need to go read a book right now. They don't need to go and travel halfway across the world to find it. And so with that, how did you start? Because you talk about how at 40, you had a spiritual awakening. How did you get to a point where you started to confront the fact that there were beliefs, pain, trauma from your past that you'd never faced before? And that's what's clouding and blocking so many people today. Our mental health or our mental wealth is lost because we're clouded by all this pain from the past, challenges we never looked at. How did you start to confront that? And where can people start too?
Man, for me, I started unpacking a lot of that in therapy. I always say that when it comes to therapy, therapy is like having a real junkie closet. So you got just a messy closet everywhere. So you start to pack up the things that you don't need and things that don't serve you anymore, and you get rid of that. And then the things you want to keep, you hang up nice and neat, and then you got room to bring new stuff in. But, to get to that point, it was just me not only asking myself a whole lot of questions, having conversations with other people. It's so funny, man. I got friends who used to tell me that they thought I was a sociopath because I didn't really show any emotions, or it didn't seem like anything ever got to me. I didn't have empathy for other people. And some of that could have been true. But, I just think that all of us are just so selfish. So we're all just stuck in our own world. And I'm sure you can attest to the fact that when you really on your grind and you trying to get it, like, you're not thinking about nobody else. Like when I was thinking about everybody else early on in my career, it was like I had a bunch of stuff weighing me down, and it's like, yo, you can't take everybody with you until you get to where you're supposed to go. So I remember telling my homeboy DJ Frosty when I first got the job at the Breakfast Club, I said, you know what I'm gonna do, man, this time around? Something I've never done before. I'm gonna be completely selfish. I said, I'm gonna focus on me and only me. And then when I get to where I feel like I need to be, I'm going to, start bringing everybody else along. So for me, when I started just having conversations with other people, right? Stop being selfish, like actually started listening. Because that's one thing social media did do. It woke a lot of people up because, just our language, like you would say little things. Right? I remember one time I got on Twitter and I said something about females. Like I thought, yo, females, whatever. And it was just like, all these comments, you don't call women females. And I'm like, what the fuck? Since when don't we call women females? But that's just, new language, new information. And instead of, at first I dismissed it, like, man, I don't want to hear that. But then after a while I had to just stop and say, okay, well, let me see why they don't want to be called female. So they broke it down to me why they don't want to be called females. I even, conversations with black women, you know what I'm saying? Like we tend to take for granted, black women. I told I used to work with this young lady named Crystal. I used to have my TV show Uncommon Sense, and she used to be on there. And I remember saying to her one day, like, I really did not know black women felt the way they felt, because my whole life, the strongest people around me was black women. My mother, my grandmother, my aunts, my girl who's now my wife. So I just wasn't paying attention to what they were saying. I just assumed that they would always be there for us, and I just assumed that they were strong enough to handle any load, but yo, they was tired. You know what I mean? And they was tired of a lot of the fuck shit that we was doing. So for me, just those type of conversations started making me be just way more aware of what was going on around me, and it started making me be more aware of what was going on with myself. And I remember having a conversation with my homegirl Amanda Seals, and I remember Amanda saying, yo, brothers are damaged. They don't want to admit that they're damaged, and they don't want to do the work to get no healing. And I remember just hearing that word, healing. And I remember saying to myself, I'm going to go get me some healing. You know what I mean? I'm going to go get me some real spiritual, emotional, mental healing. Forget the gym 3-4 times a week. You know what I'm saying? I'm about to start going to the therapist every week, and I'm about to start meditating, and, I'm about to, just do whatever I got to do to really put myself in a mentally healthy space. And then I wanted to get a handle on my anxiety. So, panic attacks is something that I experienced my whole life. And the last not the last really bad one, but the one I had that made me realize I was dealing with anxiety was when I was back at home living in Moncks Corner, South Carolina with my mother at like 31, 32 years old. My daughter was like 2. My now wife had to move back home to Moncks Corner with her parents. And I had just gotten fired for the 4th time from radio. Finally started collecting unemployment because all the other times I was too proud to do it. So I started collecting my unemployment checks. And I remember driving down I-26 in South Carolina and feeling like I was about to die. Like same feeling, the same shortness of breath, same crazy heart palpitations, had to pull over, drink some water, said a quick prayer like, please, God, don't let me die on the side of the road. Like I promise I'm going to the doctor tomorrow. Went to the doctor the next day. Doctor's like, yo, you got a healthy heart. Your heart is fine, But he said, have you suffer? Do you suffer from anxiety? And I'm like, no. He was like, sound like you had an anxiety attack. And I'm like, I've never had that before. But I thought about it. I'm like, yo, my whole life I've had these things. And then the doctor said, are you stressed out about anything? I'm like, hell yeah. You know what I'm saying? So in my mind, I could always point to something else. So I didn't deal with it. But then once you get, my next gig was the Breakfast Club. 4 or 5 years later, you richer than you ever been. You got more opportunities than you ever had, but you're still having the panic attacks. You're still having anxiety. And you're like, okay, where is this coming from? And then finally my wife was like, yo, take your ass to therapy. Just go see what's up. Instead of flirting with the idea and talking to other people about therapy, go. And that's what I did. And then, when you start going to therapy, you start unpacking all kind of shit.
Yeah.
You start dealing with trauma from things that happened to you when you was young, things that you thought you dealt with that you hadn't. You start focusing on your PTSD from things that happened to you when you was young. And then you start thinking about, the pain and the hurt that you still feel from certain situations, and you don't realize you have been redistributing that pain to other people for so long. That's why you didn't have no empathy for nobody else, because you really was hurting. And you've been hurting so long that you numb to what it is you actually feel. So,
yeah. I love that, man. And that's the challenge, right? Like all of us have been through stuff, but we've never unpacked it. We've never repacked. We've never unlearned. We've never figured it out. And that's why we end up in this position. And the problem is denial. We sit there and we deny that we have any experience of stress or pressure or anxiety, when the truth is we're dealing with a lot of it. And I love that. I love the fact that you're making that point clear, is that whatever you're experiencing, you're destigmatizing mental health, because we think mental health has to be something super mental, right? Like we think mental health has to be something like schizophrenia or like a complete personality disorder or something. We don't realize that it could just be regular anxiety.
Yeah. I didn't realize anxiety was a mental health disorder until I started going to therapy.
Yeah.
And I remember when they asked me to write, my second book. Well, they didn't ask me to write one, but they wanted me to write a second book. And I was like, I really don't have anything to write about. Because at that point, I was really just trying to figure my life out. Because you got to understand, like, when I started going to therapy, I'm 40 now. I might have started going to therapy around 38, early 39. And for me, it was like, yo, can you imagine thinking you had it all together, thinking you knew exactly what was going on in the world, and then you start sitting down with a therapist and realizing you don't know shit, realizing that, you just, everything that you was raised totally wrong in a lot of different ways. You was raised wrong by, the influences you had growing up. You was raised wrong by the music you was listening to growing up. You was raised wrong by your environment. And you've carried all of this stuff with you into your adult world, and you're still trying to function with this level of thinking and this level of understanding of things. But you've lived now, like you've lived and you've been around the world and you've talked to a lot of people and you've seen other things, and you realize like, nah, this ain't it, bro. Like we wrong. So imagine feeling like you know it all to realizing I don't know shit.
Especially when you're an influencer.
Yeah.
Like you're an opinion maker. Like people come to you to listen to your thoughts.
So.
And then you have to go through that process.
Absolutely. So the only thing I could do is like, you know what? I got to take people on this journey with me. Simple as that. I remember telling my book publisher, like, look, I've been going to therapy. I've been keeping a journal. I've been dealing with my anxiety, but then I realized I'm dealing with my PTSD. I'm realizing I got trauma from things that happened to me when I was younger. I'm, talking about being molested when I was 8. I'm talking about issues with my father, like all of these different things, fear of not being a good husband, fear of not being a good father, fear of, not being a good friend, just all kind of different things. And so I just started turning these into in the pages of a book. And what I was trying to do, I was trying to translate what my therapist was telling me, but that doesn't work, because what your therapist is telling you just helps for you to have a better understanding of what it is you're going through. So one thing that my therapist did help me do was to explain what I was going through better. But I brought in a doctor named Dr. Ish to give like the clinical correlations to everything that I was feeling. And that's what was, that was really the most beautiful thing about the book. That was therapeutic for me. And I know people say that all the time when they write books. Oh, it was therapeutic for me. But no, this was really therapeutic for me because this is it's not a book about understanding. Like it's not a book, it's a book of confusion. It's a book of unpacking. It's a book of, this is all the shit that don't serve me no more. This is what was fucked up about me, and I don't want this no more. Like, here, y'all take this. This is gone, because I'm at stage 0 right now. And guess what? Happy to be at stage 0. Like it feels good to not know. Yeah. And it feels good to say you don't know. Yeah. And I feel like at 40, I'm doing more unlearning than learning.
Absolutely, man.
At this point in my life.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the biggest challenge today is like that ability to speed up, unlearning, relearning.
Yes.
Right? Relearning again. And I think so many of us get blocked by thinking we know it all already. So I love that, man. It's a great message. Let's tap into some of those fears in a bit more detail, because I think your unlearning and your healing in those are awesome. So if we look at something like parental paranoia, which I know a lot of people have, like becoming a parent, I'm not a parent yet, and that's why I'm asking, but I'm also asking it because one area of wisdom that I don't talk about is parenting, because I'm not a parent. And I know my audience cares a lot about this. So let's talk about that parental paranoia, which I think is very normal. How have you kind of grown to deal with that and work with that or heal that?
You said something earlier. You said something about what did you say? You realize your parent, when you realize your parents.
The day you realize your parents are right, your kids are telling you that you're wrong.
Yeah. And I guess that was another one of those moments, only because you think about all the times your grandmother used to trip out over you. All the times your mother and father used to trip out over you. Wonder where you was at and why you didn't come home. Like, I remember my father, gave my older sister a beating because she broke curfew. And I remember everybody running around the town looking for her, trying to find out where she was and this and that. And it's just like, that's a paranoia that only a parent can understand. You know what I'm saying? Like, the love you have for your children, like those are risks. I got 3 girls, so that's really your heart outside of your body. Like, you're looking like somebody just ripped my organ out and threw it on the table, and I'm like, yo, could you be more gentle with my heart? That's my heart. So it's just like when my daughter is on the way to school in the morning, her being at school right now, like, I don't feel any sense of relief. Well, I got a sense of relief now because I know it's 3 o'clock. So she's out of school now. She got out of school 2:30, but I don't feel any sense of relief until I know she's home. Only because I don't know what she's going to experience at school, especially nowadays. You know what I mean? Like, these kids are growing up way different than we ever grew up. And then you see stupid shit on the news like school shootings, and you like, man, like, you start thinking the worst at all times, and it's just like, those are the things that I'm afraid of, and even just when your kids get older. I remember somebody asking me the question one day. Somebody said, I think Jamel Hill asked me this. Jamel Hill said, are you the type of man you would want your daughter to date or be with? And I was like, yeah, probably me from 35 to 40. Anything before that, hell no. But that's honestly, think about that question.
Yeah.
Like, if you got girls, are you the type of man that you would want your daughter to date? Like, stuff like that is what'll help you go out there and get the healing you need if the answer is no. You know what I'm saying? If the answer is no, then go out there and get that healing you need. Take your ass to therapy, whatever it is you got to do to, be the man that you would want your daughter to date. So, like, I'm paranoid about all of that stuff. Like, it's certain things that I've already embraced. Like, I know one day my daughter's going to have sex. You know what I'm saying? Like, and then
just got to get it.
It's going to happen. Like, every woman that we love in our life has sex. Your mama, your grandma, your sisters, your aunt, that's going to happen. So it's just like, things like that. I'm about to get a panic attack thinking about it, but that's just, you like, things like that is what you just have to accept. You understand what I'm saying? So it's just like, I always got to remember my serenity prayer, man. And that's just, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Because there's nothing I can do. And that's, somebody else told me that too. And that was like one of the most freeing things to me. They told me that you got to just let go.
Yeah.
Like, no matter how I can grab my daughter like this and hold on to her tight. I gotta let go. She's 10. My other daughter's gonna be older in a minute too. She's gonna be in school. Like, they got their own lives that they gotta live, their own lives that they gotta lead. Only thing I can do is just guide them along the way.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. No, you're spot on. And I think that's, like you said, that's a natural feeling everyone's gonna have. I always had that with my younger sisters. I've got a younger sister. I always felt like I fathered her to some degree, and there was always that feeling and that pain of seeing her date or whatever it may be. And you're right, that's just something you have to accept.
Yes.
And there's a big part of acceptance needed, because you can't control everything. And that's also liberating when you figure that out, that not everything is for yours to control.
Absolutely.
And it's not for you to control. There is certain things to humanize yourself by, and you realize, oh, actually, I'm not that significant because I can't control everything. And I have to learn to accept certain things.
Yeah, I was going to write a book. I mean, I don't think I'm going to go with this title anymore just because the energy of it don't feel right. But, at one point I was going to write a book called One Day Your Daughter's Going to Suck Dick and Other Things You Have to Accept as a Father.
Well, so now what's he going to change the title to?
I might not change. I just don't know that just feels a little too crash. You know what I'm saying? Like I know that sounds crazy coming from me, but I'm not. I guess I've grown. You know what I'm saying? I guess I've grown because at one point I'm like, yeah, that's the title. I love that, but then now it's like, I don't know if I want to put.
I think it'd be a useful book though.
Very useful.
Very useful book, yeah.
But sometimes, man, you know, you got to present the message in the right package.
Yeah,
you know,
right
sometimes,
medicine.
people will dismiss you. And just because of that title, you know what I mean? Which I think is whack. I'm not that kind of person. You know, I'm the type of person, if I see a book like The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, I'm going to read that book. You know what I mean? I'm like, oh, that's a dope title. Like, that grabbed me. But I know I come from a different generation. I come from a different culture. You know, I was going to name my first book, I Don't Give a Fuck, and Neither Should You. A self-help guide on how not to give a fuck. And the book publishers was like, no, you'll never get into Walmart. You'll never get into Target. Nobody will buy a book with fuck in the title. Yeah. And then here comes The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. Mark Manson sold goddamn over 2 million copies. And I remember sending that shit to I wrote about that book in my book because I was talking about how, you know, sometimes you just gotta listen to yourself. You know, like sometimes you're ahead of the curve and other people have to just catch up. And that's just the way our society is, especially when it comes to creatives. That's why you gotta let creatives just be creatives because they're already 10 steps ahead of you, but you got all of these suits, whether it's TV, whether it's the film world, whether it's books, like you just got these suits that are old and stuck in their ways, and being that they've never seen it work before, they'll tell you it can't work. Not knowing that you might be the first that changes the whole game.
Totally.
Nobody wants to be game changers anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. You look at Bohemian Rhapsody and Freddie Mercury.
Yes.
It's like such a game changer. And you look at anyone that we look up to or admire in the world, they've been game changers. They don't write books about people who are not game changers. You don't make movies about people that are not game changers. But we've always been taught about how do you trust other people? We don't get taught how to trust yourself.
Yes.
Right? We get taught how do you communicate with other people? We never learn how to communicate with ourselves.
Yes.
And so if you never trust your own self, you're always looking for validation. Like, hey, do you think this is a good idea? Hey, suit, do you think this is a good idea? Hey, suit, do you think this is a good idea? And then that suit becomes your validation and your decision maker.
Absolutely. And those are the most uncreative people in the world. Like, I've never been more confident in my life than I am right now. And I'm confident in the fact that I don't know shit.
Yeah.
And I'm comfortable with that, you know? And I'm confident in the fact that I am a person who truly loves themselves. And the reason I truly love myself because I've done the work to truly love myself. And it's easier for me. And I guess that's why I get hurt a lot, because I am a loving, trusting person. Because I'm at the point in my life where I try to see the good in everybody. You know what I mean? And I don't expect you to fuck me over. That's another lesson I've recently learned.
Yeah, go for it, man.
I still believe in the law of attraction, meaning that your thoughts become things. But I don't necessarily think I believe in energy as far as like whatever you put out, you get back. Because it will always be somebody else out there who's having a fucked up day who will ruin yours. Because you gotta think, all we're trying to do every day is avoid crazy.
Yeah.
We're just trying to stay out of the way of negativity, crazy, evil. But guess what? Sometimes there's people out there who are hurt. And they haven't done the work on themselves. And they haven't, gotten to that place where they're trying to do any healing. And so hurt people. And sometimes we run into those people.
Yeah.
And it has nothing to do with anything that we did. We just happen to run into, some of that negativity that day.
Yeah.
So that's just something I've been thinking about. So it's just like, yo, you gotta put that kind of energy out there just because you like putting that kind of energy out there, not because you're putting that kind of energy out there because you want to get it back.
To get it back. Yeah, absolutely. And I've realized actually that when you put out good, it does come back to you, just not in the same place as you put it.
Yes.
Right? Like that energy will transfer back, but not in the same place as you put it. So just because you put good energy into work doesn't mean good energy is going to come back to you through work.
Absolutely.
Just because you put good energy into this person doesn't mean this person's going to give you good energy back.
Absolutely.
And that's our expectation, is that we think like, if I'm nice to this person, they'll be nice to me. And that's not going to work like that.
No, be nice to that person because you want to be nice to that person and put a period on it.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that, man. And one thing you mentioned earlier that I want to dive into now, which is more about your understanding of culture and where you see it going. And you said that I grew up listening to the wrong type of music, or there was music that you think created an environment and pushed you down the line. You even said when you were thinking about people that look like you, there were certain things.
Yeah.
Let's talk a bit about how much you think music, through all of its, whether it's bad language, whether it's idolizing going to prison, whether it's idolizing guns and gangs, whether it's demeaning women or men even, like, where are your thoughts on that? And how do you think that needs to evolve, or do you think it does at all?
No, I think it has evolved.
Okay.
I mean, I grew up in the 90s. So I grew up in the era of, gangster rap music. So it was all about, the celebration of violence. It was all about the glorification of the gang culture, the glorification of the drug culture, and the extreme disrespect of women. You talking about, whether it was AMG, bitch better have my money, or Snoop Dogg, bitches ain't shit but hoes and tricks, you know what I'm saying? NWA, I teach you how to suck a dick. I remember Cameron said, niggas think to, what he said? Niggas think to reach a bitch, you gotta, what he said? Oh yeah, niggas think to reach a bitch, you gotta treat a bitch. Now you stupid motherfucker gotta beat a bitch. That's how you reach a bitch. Who thinks she all that? Whip her one time, 10 minutes, she'll call back. Like all of these, like that's what we were constantly listening to all the time. And when you go back and you look at like C. Dolores Tucker and Al Sharpton and all of these people who were saying, yo, this music is messed up, it's ruining our kids. Rappers, y'all need to do better. Record labels need to stop pushing this shit. We rebelled against that. You know what we said to C. Dolores Tucker?
What?
Shut up, bitch. You know what I'm saying? Like that, God bless the dead. That's what we did. We rebelled against that. But she was right. And so it's like a whole generation of us was affected and influenced by that kind of rhetoric. And I don't think that it's until you get older and you start having daughters of your own. That's why I think the Me Too Times Up movement is so good, because the Me Too Times Up movement is like a day of reckoning. And it's making a lot of people, look in the mirror, and the culture has shifted, and either you evolve or die. And that's something I saw like 4 years ago. Before there was a Me Too Times Up movement. Like I said, I don't know if it was my daughter, like my wife checking me, because I was really on some hip hop Howard Stern shit, like that. All of that got to my head. When they was calling me the hip hop Howard Stern and the black Howard Stern, and when I grew up listening to Howard, like Howard was on some frat boy, rapey, borderline rapey culture. Not even borderline, rape culture.
Rape
shit.
culture.
And so it's for me, I'm like, okay, that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna be shocking. I'm gonna say the most creepiest things to women in interviews. I'm gonna bring porn stars in here and tie them up. I'm gonna do like all of that kind of stuff. And that has been the most low energy content that I've put out there, if you ask me. Like when I'm having conversations with people, ain't nobody bringing that up to me. Ain't nobody saying, yo, you did this and you did that. They talking about the more high level stuff that I've putting out there in the past few years that has really influenced people. So it's just like I was doing all that for nothing. If anything, all that did was come back and bite me in the ass later on in life. Because when they start digging up old tweets and listening to old commentary, they're like, look. I'm like, man, I'm not even remotely that guy anymore. Like, yeah, that's 8-9 years ago. Like, I'm over here with it. But you got to deal with that, because that's part of me too. I put that out there, So for me, it's just like I was just reading Howard Stern's new book, and Howard Stern got this. His whole introduction is literally about that. His whole introduction is about how he doesn't consider anything he did back then good.
Wow.
He was like, that shit is cheap. It was whack. It was disgusting. And he was and this is a guy, he don't got to answer to nobody.
No.
He don't have to admit that. He was just like, that's not who I am anymore. He said when this book that he put out is his legacy book. He was like, this is what I want to be remembered as. I want these long form interviews to be what people remember me for. And so it's like, it's the same thing with me. Like, you grow up a certain way. Like I remember having a conversation with my father when he was cheating on my mom. And I'm like, oh, you cheating on mom, yada, yada, yada. And I remember him looking at me and laughing and saying, oh, you only got one girl, huh? And like, yeah, one day you'll understand. So in my mind, from that point, I'm thinking, so I'm not supposed to have one girl. I'm supposed to have a bunch of different girls. And then, you also realize that a lot of that is just ego. Men, I say it all the time, men only sleep around with a bunch of different women to feed their ego. They're looking for some sort of validation. You know what I'm saying? Like their cup is empty. So they're trying to fill their cup up, and they keep wondering why, all right, I can sleep with 10 different women and my cup still don't feel full, because there's a hole at the bottom of your cup. Like you need a whole new cup, brother. So it's just like, for me, all of these things I'm talking about created just a culture shift, and it created a spiritual awakening in me. Like I can't pinpoint one specific thing that made me say, you know what? I gotta be a better human being. I gotta be a better man. Because I was on this journey 4 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago. And that was just from listening to my friends and listening to women around me who cared about me and were telling me what I was doing wrong, and even some of social media, not all of it, because it's not constructive, but a lot of it can be constructive criticism because you start seeing things and you're like, am I that way? Do I really act like that? Do I really move like that? And then when you take a step outside of yourself, you put your ego down, you're like, oh, I see what they're saying.
Yeah. And I love hearing that, man, because I think just the fact that you can get that open in front of a mirror and be okay with the fact, and what you've just said about Howard Stern, getting okay with the fact that you don't need to tell anyone you've changed. You don't feel like you owe anyone anything. You've done your thing, but to be able to go out and just say, I got it wrong. I messed up. That was a waste of time. I think it's amazing that we live in a world where we have people doing that, because it's so easy to continue playing the facade and faking it the whole way and pretending like it never happened.
Yeah.
Right? You can grow and just pretend like it never happened.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I would never grow and pretend it never happened, only because all my favorite stories growing up were the stories of people's growth and evolution.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
I love the autobiography of Malcolm X. And I say it all the time. This generation wouldn't let Malcolm Little become Malcolm X. I was talking about Kim Kardashian earlier today. I'm like, man, I don't give a fuck how Kim Kardashian career started. Kim Kardashian is out here getting people free from prison. She's become this, criminal justice reform activist, this prison reform activist. And she's using her privilege and she's using her money and she's using her fame to get people free from prison. Who saw that coming?
Absolutely. It's a great surprise.
Like I used to work right over there on 34th Street on Park Avenue, WBLS, when I was Wendy's co-host. I used to watch Kim and Courtney come hang out with my homegirl Nicole Spence. She was Wendy's booker. Like they used to come and just hang out in Nicole's office trying to get an interview from Wendy when she was like organizing Paris Hilton's closets. And Wendy was like, all right, come in. And she came in. And then, when the sex tape happened, she came back to talk to Wendy exclusively. And I remember when Kim ran through the whole urban circuit, Smooth Magazine, King Magazine, was out there kicking it with the rappers, dating the rappers, video vixen. Then she grew a reality TV star. And now she's a wife and a mother, and she's one of the biggest brands on the planet. And she's getting people released from prison. Like, you don't know what somebody's ultimate journey is going to be. You don't know who, we really have no idea who's going to change the world. You can't ever tell. You can't ever look at a person and say, oh yeah, that's going to happen. You really don't know. Sometimes it comes from the most unlikely places. Who would have thought a pimp from Harlem would have ended up being one of the greatest activists, leaders the world has ever seen? You really don't know.
Yeah.
Look at Jay-Z, drug dealer from Brooklyn, Marcy. Now look what he's doing with the Reform Alliance and telling everybody to embrace black ownership and black entrepreneurship, something that he's been doing from the beginning. Honestly, he's been on his black ownership tip since the beginning. But you're looking at this man and you're saying, man, this man is really evolving into the leader of the free world. He said that one time. I remember one on I think it was on Ignorant Shit. He was like, the next Leo, no, more like the next leader of the free world or something like that. And I'm like, that's really what he's evolving into. This is the guy who made Big Pimpin'. This is the guy. There's not a more misogynistic video in the world, but now this guy's married to one of the most beautiful women in the world and beautiful kids, and like he's telling people about therapy and like, man, it's like, man, it's a beautiful time, man. But I'm saying all that to say, you just don't know who's going to be who. Yeah. You just got to let people grow. You got to let people evolve. You got to let people make their mistakes.
Yeah.
We're all works in progress. I don't know what I'm going to be 10 years from now.
Yeah.
I have no idea. And guess what? I'm fine with that. 10 years ago, you'd asked me what I'm going to be 10 years from now, I'd have had a whole list of things lined up for you. I'm going to be this, I'm going to be that, I'm going to be that. And guess what? It's all true.
Yeah.
But you tell me what I want to do on a professional level. Yeah, I can tell you some things I want to do on a professional level. On a personal level, I just want to continue to grow. Yeah. I want to continue to heal. I want to be the best I can be mentally. I want to be the best I can be spiritually. I want to be the best I can be emotionally. That's what I want to do on a personal level. The personal growth is more important to me than the professional growth at this point.
Absolutely, man. I love that. What a powerful message, man. I love it. I'm just listening and going, this is exactly what the world needs to hear right now, because we need to let people grow. Like, we need to let people evolve. We need to let people change their story and write another chapter, because the challenge is we want them to stay in their chapter. We want people to stay in their lane. We want people to stay in their box and not give them an opportunity to become something else. Because we're like, oh, we know what you did. We know what you did before, but we need to let them grow.
Well, you know what they say? They say when you can't stop somebody from being who they are, you keep trying to bring up who they used to be.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, and I talk about how, imagine 15 years ago, you was driving down a highway and the speed limit on the highway was 70 miles per hour. So you would do 70. Sometimes you do 75, 80 because you know you can get away with it, you know? But then 15 years later, they've reduced the speed limit on that highway to 55. Why? Because 70 was too fast. It was too many accidents happening, too many fatalities, you know? People was just really getting hurt. So it was safer for people to be doing 55 miles per hour. Okay, boom. Speed limit gets reduced to 55. 15 years later, you're grown, you're evolved, you get it. You're driving 55. Sometimes you might do 60 because you know that's what you can get away with.
Yeah.
But imagine you go home and then all of a sudden you start getting tickets in your mailbox because you was doing 70 15 years ago on this highway that is now a 55. It's like I was doing what I was allowed to do. At the time, that's the information I was presented. They told me 70 was the speed limit I could do, so that's what I was doing. Now that I found out that the speed limit isn't, you know, conducive to me living a healthy lifestyle or anybody on that highway living a healthy lifestyle, I'm gonna drive the speed limit because I want all of us to live on this journey called life. I want all of us to be peaceful on this journey called life. I want all of us to live safe on this highway called life.
Absolutely, man. This has been such an amazing conversation. And every podcast, we finish it with the final 5. So these are final 5 rapid fire questions. You can answer in 1 word, 3 words, or 1 sentence maximum. Okay. Right? Easy for you. You're a lyricist, you're a rapper. So this is part of the play. So final 5. First question, what do you think is the greatest hip hop album of all time?
Only Built for Cuban Links by Raekwon the Chef.
Oh, nice. Okay. It's question 2. If you could change one thing about humanity, what would it be?
I would want everybody to love.
Okay, nice. Question 3. What's the best advice you've ever received?
Best advice I've ever received.
Take your time.
Honestly, man, I would have to give that credit to my father when he told me that if you don't change your lifestyle, you're going to end up in jail, dead, or broke sitting under the tree. And the reason I got to credit that to him because what he was telling me back then is you have to grow, you have to evolve. And that is something that even though I don't have no threat of jail, I mean, we all have a threat of death, you know, but I don't have any threat of being broke sitting under the tree. It's just that at every point in your life, it's going to call for a new you. And it's going to call for you to grow and it's going to call for you to evolve. And if you don't evolve, you will die.
Absolutely, man. Question 4, what's the worst advice you've ever received?
Worst advice I ever received was, fuck that, you're going to be a real nigga for the rest of your life. You know, like, that's just stupid. You know, because there's so many of us, I've seen so many people fall victim to just stuck on that one mindset. Like they just had to stay in tune with the hood, and they just so much so that they would still hang out in the hood. Like I've had homeboys who gotten scholarships to go to college, but they just wanted to come home all the time just to hang out in the trap. You know what I mean? And that's exactly what happened. They ended up trapped in our hometown. You know, they ended up just not evolving the way that they probably would have if they would have stayed in school and stayed in college and actually took advantage of the scholarships and stuff that they were presented. So it's just like, yeah, like, you know, just keeping it real in the cliche. That's the worst advice I ever got. The worst advice I ever got was keeping it real. Yeah. But keeping it real in the cliche term that the streets give you, which is actually keeping it criminal. You know?
Keeping you locked.
Yeah, because keeping it real is what I feel like I'm doing now. I'm like, I don't know nothing. I'm going to therapy. You know what I'm saying? I'm afraid of being a terrible father, being a terrible husband. So that's I feel like I'm more real now than I've ever been.
Nice, man. And question 5, what's the one thing you're trying to learn this year?
I'm actually trying to unlearn more than I'm trying to learn. I don't think I'm really trying to learn anything. I'm just still unlearning a lot of things. I feel like unlearning is learning, at least for me.
Agreed.
You know? So it's just like I'm still just peeling back a lot of layers of BS and a lot of layers of nonsense. And I'm just I'm just really just trying to learn how to love more. I know that sounds so cliche, but it's the truth, man. Like, I promise you, like, if we all just, first of all, I got to start with you. Your first, last, and best love is self-love. If you love yourself, it will be so easy for you to love others. And you know, I started thinking about this a lot when the Nipsey Hussle situation happened, God bless the dead, because I never in my life felt empathy for both parties in a situation like that. You know, I knew Nipsey. You know, Nipsey was a great brother. You know, me and Nipsey used to share books and stuff like that. He was a good man. You know, and of course I was gonna have empathy for him. Of course I was gonna have empathy for his family. But when I heard what happened, and then my homegirl Lisa sent me the goddamn video, and I don't watch stuff like that, but I didn't know what it was, so I clicked on it and watched it, and I didn't think I was gonna have empathy for the guy who actually shot Nipsey, but I did. And that was a strange feeling for me. And the reason I had empathy is because I understand that that brother was in some type of pain. Hurt people hurt people. And if we don't start healing each other to deal with that hurt, all we're gonna do is redistribute that pain to other people. And that's what happened that day. That was a redistribution of pain. So Nipsey was a loving brother. He was a brother that put out good energy. It didn't matter. It goes back to what I said earlier. Sometimes you run into negative people. Sometimes you run into evil people. Sometimes you run into people who haven't healed at all. And all they want to do is hurt you. So it's just like, when I saw that, I just had a different feeling of empathy, you know, and I never felt that way before. I never thought I would feel that way about somebody like him, but it just really made me say, man, I just want to go on this mission of like just helping brothers really, really heal. Like, I've been out here talking about mental health and investing in your mental wealth, but no, like, I really, really got to go out here and help brothers heal. You know what I mean? So we can stop hurting each other.
Yeah, absolutely, man. When you're hurt, you end up cutting people who didn't make you bleed.
Oof.
Right?
Powerful, yeah.
We do that all the time. When we're hurt, when we're wounded, we go and cut others, even though they didn't do anything to us.
Yeah, we bleed on people who didn't cut us.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely. Charlamagne, you incredible, man.
Thank
this
you,
has been
brother.
one of my
Appreciate
favorite
you, man.
conversations. Honestly, you really brought your energy, man. I loved it.
It's been an hour already?
Yeah, man. It's been an
Wow.
hour already. I've got like a million more questions to ask you, so we got to do round 2.
Let's do it.
Thank you so much. And everyone who's been listening or watching, make sure you share your insights on Instagram. Tag both of us. Anything that you learned, anything that you gained, share it with your communities. There's so many great talking points in this conversation. Make sure you get those insights. Make sure you get them out there. Make sure you subscribed and rated to the podcast. And make sure you go find out where Charlamagne is. Charlamagne, where's the best place that you'd like them to come find you?
I'm on Instagram at CTheGod, CTHAGOD. I'm on Twitter at CTheGod, CTHAGOD.
Absolutely, man.
You know, go grab my books, Shook One, Anxiety Playing Tricks on Me, and Black Privilege Opportunity Comes to Those Who Create It. Both national bestsellers.
Absolutely. Go get those, guys. We'll put those links in the bottom as well. Thank you so much, Charlamagne. Honestly,
My
man.
brother.
I
Thank you,
appreciate
man.
it, man.
Appreciate
Such a
you.
pleasure, man.
Yes,
It's
sir.
awesome. If you want even more videos just like this one, make sure you subscribe and click on the boxes over here. I'm also excited to let you know that you can now get my book, Think Like a Monk, from thinklikeamonkbook.com. Check below in the description to make sure you order today.